giving important information.
Good evening, West Orange, and welcome to our October 27th Council Conference meeting. Madam Clerk, would you kindly read the opening statement, please?
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. A notice of this meeting was mailed to the Star-Ledger and the West Orange Chronicle on December 1st, 2014. A notice of this meeting was also posted on the bulletin board in the Municipal Building, West Orange, and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk of the Township of West Orange on December 1st, 2014. Councilwoman Castellino?
Present.
Councilman Cirillo?
Present.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Present.
Council President Garino.
Present. Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you to my colleagues. The first item up tonight is our Township Proclamation declaring November 13th World Pancreatic Cancer Day. I'd like to ask the representative to come up to the podium. I'd like to make the presentation to you.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you very much for being here this evening. It's a very important thing, is the understanding of pancreatic cancer. And it's understanding it affects many lives. It affects a lot of us personally, whether it's through family, through personal things. We appreciate your work and efforts on this topic and appreciate the needs for research and for understanding so that more and more people go out and have themselves checked, have them verified, because I know that it's a very aggressive and progressive, type of cancer, but treatment is there and you can do certain things, but we need to do more research. And hopefully through your work, people will fully understand the need for more research, and someday we'll find a cure for it, hopefully. But what we'd like to do as a township, and from the township council, is to make a proclamation. And so the proclamation is we're going to be declaring November 13th World Pancreatic Cancer Day here in the township of West Orange. And if you like, I would like to read it to you and present it, and then you'll be welcome to make any comments you'd like to make. Thank you. Well, the microphone. I always forget about the microphone. Okay. Whereas in 2015, an estimated 48,960 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 40,560 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, is currently the fourth leading cause of cancer deaths in the United States, and is projected to become the second by 2020. Whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 7%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of the diagnosis, while 93% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas approximately 1,560 deaths will occur in New Jersey in 2015, and whereas pancreatic cancer is the 7th most common cause of cancer-related death in men and women across the world. Whereas there will be an estimated 367,000 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed globally in 2015, and whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of West Orange are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatment. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of West Orange designates November 13th as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in the Township of West Orange. Thank you very much.
My name is Todd Cohen, and I actually work in the schools. I work in 2 of the middle schools in West Orange, and I can't thank you all enough. We've been doing this for so many years, and not much has changed over those couple of years. And it's sad to say that the survival rate is only 7%. And you heard what Council President Garino just said. Since we've been doing this, that number hasn't changed much. There's no early detection method. There are no cures. There's not much out there right now for pancreatic cancer. But that's not stopping me. That's not stopping those who are volunteering for the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, which is it's a national organization creating hope in a very comprehensive way. We do it through research, patient support, community outreach, and advocacy for a cure. If you know someone who's fighting pancreatic cancer, I urge you to go to pancan.org, and the numbers are growing. This is a cancer that's on the rise. Many cancers are not on the rise, but that's not the case with pancreatic cancer. We have a walk called Purple Stride, New Jersey. It's purplestride.org. It's in Parsippany on November 8th. If you're interested, if you know somebody that is fighting the disease, it's a major event where we have a lot of people wearing purple. We have survivors there. There are survivors of this disease, and they're a symbol of hope. So, I urge you to look at the website. And, I've been affected by this disease. My father died of pancreatic cancer 13 years ago. Little did I know about the disease. Michael Landon had it, but as time has progressed, other people like Steve Jobs, a man who had all the resources in the world, succumbed to this disease. And the list is growing with more and more celebrities. So like we heard from the proclamation, survival rate 7%. About 1,560 people will die from pancreatic cancer in this year alone, and that number keeps growing. So we need to raise awareness. On November 13th, I ask you all to wear purple. If you turn on the television set, you'll see a lot of the news anchors wearing purple, and that's raising awareness. It's not necessarily about the money, it's about helping people and finding a way to defeat this disease. I just want to thank once again Council President Garino and the Township Council as well for helping make this proclamation a possibility. I also want to give a special thank you to Karen Carnevale, who always comes through in helping this become a reality every year. By working together, we can raise awareness, we can support patients and their families, raise funds to find a cure, and to do this through contributions as well as federal legislation. So once again, thank you so much for doing this small thing, but it really goes a long way in raising awareness for pancreatic cancer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sean. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And I hope all our West Orange family and friends and our residents, support this worthy cause, and to be out there and to reach out, go to the website. It's something, it shows what West Orange is all about. Remember, we've always been there for all the needs of our citizens, all the social aspects. So we just hope you're there, and on November 13th, wear purple. Everybody's got purple ties and purple shirts and those. Just go out there, and we're there for you. So thank you very much. Next up on will be the update on the downtown development and the downtown redevelopment. So we do have a council legal team. We have the redevelopers legal team here. So Mr. Sayers, how would we like to start this?
Who would like to speak first? Mr. Diaz? We have the principal from PRISM here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Diaz.
Good evening, Council President. How are you?
Good, sir.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
So, what would you like to tell us what the status is and where the next step is in this redevelopment?
Well, look, you asked us to come down and give you a little update. I'm happy to give you an update that construction has started in accordance with.
I'll use the microphone. Mr. Diaz, no, you can pull it up. Okay.
Construction has started in accordance with our development schedule, as outlined in the original agreements with the township. We are moving through our pre-development phases of the construction, which involves certain cleanup items and involves additional remedial investigative work required by our LSRPs in conjunction with our remedial action work plan with the state. It involves certain other lead-based paint abatements that we're doing while the windows are continuing to close the building for public safety purposes. It includes clearing the site. It includes submitting our plans to the township. As of today, sign and seal drawings for the garage portion of the work, which will be the first vertical component of the site. The new vertical component were delivered to your building office for their review. Next week, we'll be delivering. By the end of next week, early part of the following week, we will be delivering the retail and the residential units, what we call the R building, for review and permit, and the full site work documents for all of the site work to be done. We've been engaged in discussions now with PSE&G, negotiating the transaction that requires relocation of pole lines as well as institution of the underground lines or relocation of certain lines underground. There are discussions of coordination efforts that have to happen at this point yet with your building office. I think there was a discussion today concerning setting up a time to have those discussions. regarding that project. So we are, in accordance with our original schedule as set forth, we're on our schedule of delivery and completion of the building by this sort of time in 2017. From the partner's perspective, we've written a bunch of checks, paid a whole heck of a lot of money over to various other service providers and subcontractors on the job. We are finalizing our loan documents. We have a fully negotiated term sheet with our lender. We spent a significant portion of time negotiating the term sheet, probably much more than you normally would, because we wanted to make certain we ironed out all of the potential details and issues. So it was a rather lengthy engaged term sheet component. We're passing by our documents now. We would hope to think that in the next 60 days or so, we should be done and completed and signed. The township has all the other documents, I believe, in escrow at this point in time that were sorted, which will be released with the transfer of title of the property, which was always intended to be coincident with the closing of the loan. That being said, we've continued our work, and we're happy to move along. We're excited about the project. We remain enthusiastic about the project after all this time. The design and refinements of the design, I think, are going to come out. The township's going to come out, and everyone will be wowed. Despite the delays and the cost of those delays, we have not sacrificed one component of quality in this building that we had planned or programmed from day one. In fact, I'd say we probably increased certain components. So we're very happy and pleased and think that we're continuing on our original goal of delivering an unbelievable adaptive, reuse, reimagined downtown epicenter for West Orange, and happy to be finally continuing to do it.
Mr. Diaz, have you and your partners come to with a new marketing package for how you're going to market the units and the retail space?
It's very premature at this point to even have something like that. And the marketing for multifamily rentals in New Jersey typically happens sort of in the 3 to 6 months before your final delivery of the units. So no, so we don't. I mean, we have our full unit plans, are completed at this point in time, so we know every unit, what they all look like, all the instances inside. Those documents are being completed, which will be probably in the next 30 to 45 days in coordination with the town. We've had some discussions with the town about the staffing requirements necessary to review and permit these documents, as well as your subcode officials going forward to review on that schedule. So we're working through that to make certain that the process goes as smooth as can be and keeps on the schedule. People don't understand necessarily about sort of large-scale construction, Council President, Council members, it's just not all vertical. So much of the construction work that gets done is sort of programming phases and coordination phases, so that little things are put in place so that as the process rolls through, each trade and each component fits in in an integrated fashion, so there aren't delays in between. All right, so a lot of the construction work that goes on is stuff you don't see, wouldn't be visible to the passerby necessarily. There will come a time, likely, where you will clearly, without a doubt, the cranes will be there and the garage will be going vertical, and you'll see all that, and the windows will come out of the building. You may or may not see that depending on the level of scaffolding up at the time. But a lot of the work that happens is happening in places and on things that you don't really see initially for the first 3 or 4 months of work.
Okay, thank you. My council colleagues, Councilwoman Castellino, you have any questions?
What is your time frame so the public would be able to visualize and see the components on the exterior of the building?
I'll call you next.
From start to finish, an individual breakdown. So I can give you here's what I can tell you in sort of general terms, right? Our critical path schedule has us essentially on a 24-month schedule from start to finish, right? Which puts us again, as we said, sort of into that October-November timeframe of 2017. During that timeframe, as I said, sort of the first 3 or 4 months is stuff that you're not going to see a lot of really big things happening, heavy machinery, heavy equipment. We're also heading into the winter months. So in all likelihood, just based on the timing of the way the pace of the deal took, some of our schedule is getting jockeyed around a little bit because we probably won't be able, depending on the severity of our winter, pour concrete, right, sort of under the garage. We should be able to do footings and foundations in the winter because we can blanket those. But just, we look at a time period when you'll see stuff. So if, let's assume, our sort of 4 months worth of sort of behind-the-scenes site work and other things is going on, that puts us out to takes us December, January, February, March-ish. In the springtime, you should start to see verticality sort of start to happen on site. We have, from that point in time, about a 12-month schedule, right, of delivering that retail building and the residential units above in approximate terms. So that, again, puts us into the spring of the following year to get that up and going. You'll see that up and in. You'll see scaffolding erected again, probably sometime in the winter months on the building itself to start protecting the building and start preparing it for the massive concrete restoration that needs to take place on the exterior facade.
Have any other questions, Councilwoman?
No, he pretty much answered a few of them in his presentation.
Councilman Cirillo, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand go up.
Oh, it's okay. No, not a
please.
problem. Thank you, Mr. Diaz, for being here. Just a couple of questions. In August, we approved the amendment to the redevelopment agreement, and it contained a contract which needs to be executed between the municipality and the developer. And it's my understanding that that document hasn't been executed yet. What's the status of that?
Well, our joint venture agreement between the new parties has been executed and placed into escrow with the township, along with, I believe, the other agreements that both the town and we need to execute.
Okay.
The plan from the very beginning was that those documents would be released and countersigned coincident with the closing of the project loan, which then provides full evidence that the full capital stack of funding, the equity commitment made by the members, right, and they're already beginning to write checks,
Right.
and then the loan to put in place to balance that out is in place. That would evidence the full capital stack required to complete the project.
So the joint venture partnership agreement is not yet signed, but what
No,
about
it's signed. No, I believe it is signed and in escrow with the town. I think your redevelopment council is holding that in escrow.
Okay. And what about the amendment to the redevelopment agreement that was approved?
Your redevelopment council, I believe, has the completed redevelopment agreement, amended redevelopment agreement that was there. So, Matt, you can.
Good evening, sir.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Matt Karenberg, and I'm a lawyer with Dakotas Fitzpatrick and Cole. We represent the redeveloper. From a standpoint of the execution of the agreements, the joint venture agreement, I believe, has been signed and held in escrow. The redevelopment agreement and what I think we call the modification agreement, financial agreement,
Sure.
and others are in final form. They were voted on and approved, and they're in execution form, and both councils have copies of them. They can't be executed until there's a transfer of the property to the new entity.
Sure.
In which case, and that's set to occur when the loan closes, and when
Sure.
that happens, then those documents will be submitted to you, signed, and hopefully countersigned.
Sure,
at that time.
that's understood. So what is the status of the, and I'm glad to hear that the construction has started and that, there's mobilization and that the process is coming along. What is, there was a date that was set of the end of September for the beginning of construction. And again, I know that, we're mobilizing, permitting, we're applying for permits, et cetera. Where does that leave that commitment to begin construction at that date if the documents haven't been yet executed because we're waiting on the financial commitments?
Yeah, I think that's actually an excellent point, and what it does show is the commitment that is here today, because we don't have those agreements signed. We don't technically have those rights on behalf of the new entity to begin those things, but everyone from the developer side is trying to honor those commitments that were made and that are obviously in the agreement with respect to the construction start date. Again, very similar to what Mr. Diaz said, the beginnings of the construction have occurred, and so we think we're honoring those agreements, even though they've yet to be executed and delivered.
Okay, very good. And since you're up there, question about the obligation of the municipality in regards to the $6 million. Can you, just for the public's sake, can you explain when that commitment is expected to be complied with or met by the town? When is that money released?
Well, as part of those agreements, that money was expected to be sort of last in. As we all, I assume, know, that's an issue of pending litigation. Recently, oral argument was heard at the Supreme Court regarding the validity of that. So it's contemplated in the agreements. It has a contemplated release date when certain triggers are met within there, and it's always been expected that the money, the equity money, and the bank loan money would flow in first, and then. And
that's a key point. So yeah, so as Ms. Diaz was just talking about how there has been a delivery of the financial loan documents and everything, and you just made an excellent point in terms of safeguarding this deal for our residents. There has to be certain triggers. There has to be financial expenditures by the developer before we put in a cent into that development. And in the meantime, and again, just to give assurances to the general public, we're up to date with the property taxes owed in all of those properties, correct?
We are as you know, the PRISM entity's redeveloper, that executed the redevelopment agreement in 2006. They've always paid all their property taxes. They have for more than a decade now. I understand that there's the occasional issue regarding timing, but they certainly have made all the payments in satisfaction of all the legal requirements. To go to your point in terms of the town kicking in the money, I think it's also understood, as we just referenced, there's pending litigation. So the developer is continuing to go forward, at risk, understanding that even though the original commitment and the original agreement called for a lot more bonds, that there is the possibility that maybe you won't be able to issue those bonds, and they continue to move forward based on the expectation and hopefully the favorable outcome.
Okay. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation in this update for the general public's sake. One more, I have two more questions, and they pertain to Mr. Diaz.
Okay.
So I thank you for your feedback. You were able to answer my questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Diaz, you talked about the financial loan documents being exchanged. Have they been fully submitted to the banking institution or the?
Yeah, we're negotiating the details of the variety of the documents with our lender.
And that's the $70 million construction loan?
That is correct.
Okay, so you're at a negotiation point. There are no additional documents that needs to be submitted. Basically, what I'm getting to is, what kind of time frame are we looking at in regards to?
As I said in my earlier statement, Councilman Cirillo, it was, we think within the next 60 days or so, we should have completion of those documents.
Completion of those documents, which means that the banking institution will send it to their loan committee for approval or final approval?
Well, the preliminary committee, as I understand, their approval process has already reviewed the loan.
Okay.
And issued the term sheet, right? So banks
Okay.
don't issue and sign term sheets
Correct.
without, in a very light fashion. It's not willy-nilly. So they've reviewed the fundamentals of the transaction. They are finishing up their required diligence items, final diligence items, in order to obtain their whatever final credit committee approval they need to release money and enter into the agreements. But we anticipate at this point in time these are very astute national bank type companies that this is what they do. They're in this business.
Sure. So 90 days is kind of, like an estimate in terms of the timeline. So that was my question. My final point, Council President, is about a construction schedule. Ms. Diaz talked about a development schedule. There's some construction work going on. There's a 24-month schedule from beginning to end. I don't know if there exists an actual construction schedule that that the council can have. So that we are more educated on what kind of timeline we expect. Of course, once these the loans come in and all financing is in place, I would be interested, through you, Council President, in seeing a construction schedule, just so that we can
I'd
be
be
more
interested.
educated.
It'd be good to have documentation, so when the residents do ask us, we're giving them an educated and at least some sort of concise information. And
The
not just
triggers to
having-
that information helps us figure out, like, the tax abatement issues,
Exactly.
like the timing.
It would
and-
help us with that whole timing situation. It would be good to have.
So I would just like to put in that request to Council President, and that's,
I support that
that's
request.
all my questions. Thank you, Ms. Diaz.
We'll consider the request submitted by your attorney to our council.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Councilman Kukoviac.
Councilwoman
I have a-
Castellino has a follow-up.
Oh, I'm
Thank-
sorry.
Thank you, I apologize. So are you stating that you have a loan commitment with stipulations that you need to meet, or you have a fully executed loan commitment?
We have a fully executed loan commitment that details with specificity significant terms and conditions between the parties.
Yes,
Which,
okay.
right. So what follows now is they're getting their appraisal completed. We've had several appraisals done. We don't anticipate there being an appraisal issue relative to the loan covenants itself. So they're doing their work, and we're negotiating documents, like the actual documents that will bind the parties to the loan are being negotiated currently.
How many stipulations do you have to meet?
Well, you have to, you're using a term of art that I'm not familiar with in our industry when you say stipulation.
Okay, requirements,
For requirements for
as
their.
far as the appraisal and whatever.
They have a number of things that they need to do internally. We've provided them all of the information that we need to provide them. Lawyers are engaged and are negotiating the documents. They are doing things on their side that they require to do in order to get their final internal approvals so that they can execute the agreements.
Okay. Councilman?
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, I appreciate you coming here along with your retinue to provide us additional information.
One for each of you.
You say you have a signed term sheet.
Yes, sir.
Is there any problem with you emailing that to the council?
Yes, certainly.
Tonight or
No,
tomorrow?
certainly there's a problem with it. That's confidential, and you can make that request through your attorneys, but there are confidential provisions in there that between the parties that are not necessarily for public disclosure.
You say, I don't know whether this is for you or Mr. Kierenberg, you say that a lot of these documents are already in escrow, and I wondered what that meant in terms of who has access to them and who has seen them.
I suggest you ask your counsel that question. I think that'd be more appropriate request to your counsel.
Okay. Mr. Kierenberg had a reference to Prism paying its property taxes and just mentioned that there was occasionally, I don't want to misparaphrase you, but occasionally a problem on timing. Prism has been delinquent on its property taxes for 17 straight quarters since August of 2011, each time committing an event of default under the redevelopment agreements. You paid your delinquent taxes yesterday to fulfill the obligations of the second notice of default that the town administration has sent. And I'm wondering why it is that you are consistently not only late paying your taxes, but also committing events of default under the redevelopment agreements.
No, I would disagree with your characterization of what has risen to a level of event of default. I think we've not been issued 17 separate events of default under the agreement, so I think that you're misleading the public with your statement, Councilman. Secondly, with respect to the taxes, I'm not inclined to do so, but I'm sure that I could ask the tax assessor for a list of everybody, all the taxpayers in the town, to see what percentage of people have paid or regularly pay or occasionally pay their taxes delinquent. It's the nature of what goes on. I will tell you that since 2008, when values plummeted throughout commercial properties throughout New Jersey, we have had appeals pending in front of this township from 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, amounting to over $2 million in excess property taxes, which we have paid you during that period. That is not disputed necessarily by the two appraisers, ours and yours, but we can't get the township in to settle those agreements, and you continue to slow both those agreements. So at the end of the day, I'm paying you money, Councilman, that you're going to owe me back under legitimate appeals that the state has established that process for. So, we are continue to pay our taxes. We've been doing so for 10 years, despite the number of delays of this project that were not necessarily, redeveloper delays, but delays with respect to litigation that this township that we've paid for, right, and supported and made payments for on behalf of this township to their professionals through our escrow agreements as well. So I think we've more than met our burden of share to this township and to this municipality, and are continually looking forward to getting through the process, despite many, many people during this recession, the worst recession that hit America, right, since the Great Depression, from 2008 to 2012 in the commercial real estate market. Very few other developers would still be standing here with you today with the wherewithal to get that project going. And yet here we are, we're ready to go.
So are you disputing that you haven't been delinquent in your property
I
taxes
didn't say that.
for 17 straight quarters?
I did not say I haven't looked.
Maybe this will just clarify it, Councilman. As of the date and as we speak right now, the redeveloper has satisfied all of its financial obligations with the town.
I just asked the question about why is it that the redeveloper has been delinquent in its property taxes 17 straight quarters,
Okay, and
which under the
it was
redevelopment
been
agreements.
asked and answered.
And what was the answer? Why he's
You just
delayed
heard,
for 17 quarters in a row?
Gene explained the answer to him about that.
I'm sorry, what was the answer? Why?
He gave you the answer.
What was the answer? Because I don't recall what the answer was.
We can talk about it again and again and again if you want to state factual
economy.
statements of 17 quarters in a row. I don't know if that's true or not, but to the extent it is, okay. But as of today, and as has always been the case, and never once has the township gone beyond its budget or fiscal or calendar year without the redeveloper making all of its tax payments, including interest, which, by the way, you know, isn't sometimes
Councilman, we're here. We've attended. We're providing you answers and information. The township has been made whole on everything throughout this process over the last 10 decades. We're out probably right now at about a $20 million loss on this project, guaranteed. And yet we're still investing more money so that we can deliver this. That was our promise. That was our covenant. That's what we're doing. Okay? So we are out probably now $20 million, right, in lost money on this deal. Carry expenses, the property taxes that you have been paid. So forgive me if I seem a little bit tense over the issue that you're concerned about the township's taxes when you've been paid every cent. You refuse to engage with our people in terms of substantive discussions with regards to the appeals that are pending, all right? And we're out lost profits on this deal and lost sunk money on this deal to the tune of close to $20 million. And yet we are here writing checks for another $35 million, committing to loan agreements for another $70 million to deliver this project to this township. And that's what we're doing.
The reason I asked the questions about the delinquent taxes, and it's a clear event of default when the taxes are not paid on time, is because this project has been not moving ahead for nearly 9 years now, since you got the approval. But we've heard a lot of talk about progress, and we've heard announcements and news releases that things are moving forward. And yet we haven't seen any of that going on. And so I'm trying to get to the point where if you're not complying with the redevelopment agreement by paying your taxes on time, how can we trust that you're going to be doing any of these other things that you're required to under the agreement?
Is that a question or statement? I can't tell.
The reason I asked about the delinquent taxes is because it goes to...
Are the taxes delinquent now, Councilman?
I'm sorry, could I just finish my sentence? The reason I'm asking the questions is because it goes to the question of whether you are fulfilling the obligations under the redevelopment agreement. So I'll just move on. You said that, again, I don't want to paraphrase me, but you said that you had always intended that the signing of the 2015 documents was intended to be done at the closing of the loan.
Yes, sir.
Who was that made clear to? Because it came as a surprise to me when I learned recently that the documents hadn't been signed shortly after the council approved them at the August council meeting.
Well, the establishment of the escrow for the town to hold those documents was always established, so this was all communicated with the township. Otherwise, why establish the escrow for the town to hold the documents?
The council wasn't told any of this. That's why I'm trying to find out from you who it is that knew on, you keep saying the township. It
I
wasn't
don't
the
know.
township council.
I can't tell you who disseminates what information to which council members or which not from what committees, Councilman. All I can tell you is that your attorneys have the documents. The construct of the deal was arranged through the town's attorneys. I can only assume that they get all their authorizations from the council and from the administration.
While I have you here, I'll follow up with questions to our own attorney. There's been some issue about the status of the property at 217 Main Street. And I wonder if you could just tell me where the status of that property is in terms of what's going on with redevelopment there.
Councilman, I have to interject. What does it have to do with the Battery building? It's not part of this phase one of the development, sir. What does your question have to do with what we're talking about now is phase one of the development, which what all this agreement is about? Just, I'm being polite, sir, to you, asking you the question. What is the relevance of this question to phase one?
Well, one of the issues is that I've been trying to find out this information for a few years. And I thought as long as Mr. Diaz was standing here in front of us, he could tell us.
Well, I understand that, Councilman, but then our council could answer that question too. But right now, the relevance of that property has nothing to do with what's on the agenda tonight for phase one of the project. We need to get phase one done before phase two or phase three ever occurs. And in all respect to you, I respect your question. I'm just asking, what relevance does that have to phase one and what we're talking about tonight? It's just my question to you, sir.
Yeah, I don't know that it has any relevance other than as it reflects on the future of the redevelopment zone development.
Mr. Diaz, are you?
Well, there was the redevelopment plan for 217 Main Street was never anything to be developed there. It was just to continue to keep the property as a retail establishment in support of the overall downtown zone. So there's no redevelopment efforts ever, nor in the redevelopment plan, nor in the redevelopment agreements relating to that property, other than it to be an operating property. And that's exactly what it remains today, an operating property.
The last we heard when we looked at some of the Prism's financial documents was that Prism was trying to sell the property. And I'm just trying to figure out what the status of that is, because I think it also said that
we continue to review any and all options relative to our assets and our holdings with respect to what they are. That property has no significant redevelopment or any redevelopment associated with it under our agreements with the township. We're free to sell that property if we so choose to sell that property. Someone made us an offer, we evaluated it, and we went down the road for a little bit, but we did not enter into a transaction at the end of the day.
Have you resumed making mortgage payments on the property?
Mortgage is being made on the property. Mortgage, but I don't know. I'd like to know what you mean by resumed, but mortgage payments are always made on the property.
The financial documents that we saw indicated that you had tried to sell the property, and also indicated that you were not paying the mortgage and that there was some sort of legal dispute.
We are in dispute with our lender over that and relating to environmental cleanup matters at the property.
So
that we inherited when we purchased it, yes.
So are you paying the mortgage on the?
The mortgage is being paid on the property.
I know the
taxes are being paid on the property.
I know the taxes.
The mortgage is being paid on the property.
But is Prism paying the mortgage? Is Prism paying the taxes?
I don't know that that's relevant to you, Councilman, whether it's a question that's relevant to the township or relevant to you personally. But right now, the mortgage has been paid, the taxes have been paid, we're operating the property, we continue to be the owners of the property, and we continue to work through the situation that we inherited with the property with regard to its environmental condition.
Anything else, Councilman?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I mean, I hope you just keep it to the phase one of the project. I mean, the question you just asked had nothing to do with phase one of the project. It's their property.
Well, the property is in the property is in the redevelopment area. The property is in the redevelopment area.
Okay? I understand, sir.
Okay.
But okay, you just finish your questions, Councilman. Okay.
You're obviously an experienced commercial real estate developer. What do you think are the chances at this point that you will not obtain the construction loan?
I think every indication is we're going to obtain the construction loan.
Is it still possible that you would not obtain the construction loan?
There are exogenous events, I suppose, in the world that could occur, that, you know, a bank could go bankrupt that we're talking to. I doubt it, but there are always possibilities out there, Councilman. But we feel relatively confident at this point in time that we've identified the right lender. They've spent a significant amount of time reviewing the property, reviewing our financials, reviewing our plan, reviewing the market, going to the great extent of getting internal bank approvals to issue an executed term sheet, and to have time and money spent on their legal team to negotiate the documents with us. So at this point in time, we feel extremely confident that we'll continue to close that loan and move the project forward on our current schedule as planned.
When, and hopefully it's likely that you get to that point, when the loan closes, would you please notify the council when that closes?
I think we can be happy to put in that request if you want to. If you'd want to know, we'll be happy to tell you, because at that point in time, that's when the documents will be released, so you'll know. I don't want to bound to be sending a separate notice. There seems to be enough order and rule in these documents to keep us busy interpreting them constantly. But the way they're set up, your council will be aware, because your council will be advised at that point in time that it's been closed, and we ask those documents to be released, and we want you to sign the relevant agreements.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman McCartney.
Gene, I'm just pleased that you're here. This has been a long time. You could hear the frustration that, you know, more so on your end than our end, but we're anxious to see this move forward.
Thank
I
you
don't have any questions. Is there anything more that you can add to this conversation?
I think we had a very in-depth discussion and plan review with the West Orange Historic Commission.
Right.
And we received approvals from the West Orange Historic Commission in terms of our reissuance of a certificate of appropriateness. We've come to terms with West Orange Historic Commission members with respect to how to treat the exterior of the building and what their involvement will be going forward. And we feel very happy that there's that level of involvement to ensure the integrity of this structure as a historic building going forward. So, we remain, again, extremely enthusiastic about the project. It's going to be a tremendous winner. The design elements of the building continue to outshine any of its competing properties in the marketplace. We receive interest calls all the time from people wondering, hey, when can I start looking at units in there? So we're excited by it, and we're underway, and looking forward to a free process here to go forward so that we can focus on the task at hand, which is renovating a 100-year-old historic structure for occupancy by residents in 2017.
So, Gene, because this is on a national register, does that change the retail and how you market it because people are looking at this?
Well, the retail, again, Councilwoman, has always been, in our vote, is not to be a, it's really not the moneymaker of the project. We designed it, and in our analysis, it's being presented as the space. Yeah, we want to make certain we get the right retailers in there to enhance the overall living experience in the downtown zone. You've got a wonderful opportunity here in West Orange, which is why we stuck with it for this long. You have a walkable downtown zone that's, a mile away from the Orange train station and mass transit. You are proximate to the highway, right? You have a wonderful school system and a robust township overall. There's a lot of interest in people. In Essex County, you are the leading township in Essex County when it comes to new move-ins in terms of real estate and real estate transfers, right, for residents. So you're doing something right. We applaud you in that degree. You have continued to show leadership in this regard in terms of people wanting to become West Orange residents. And I think that there will be 333 or more so people that will want to be West Orange residents to live in the Edison Battery Factory.
One more question.
Sure.
So, Gene, I'm sorry to hear about the $20 million that you estimate in loss or into this investment, but can you have already, though it's not obvious, but you have already invested $60 million at least.
Site cleanup.
in this, well,
Well,
remediation?
in total expenditures in the redevelopment zone, and when we look at the value of those holdings today, which is how we result in what we see as a loss to us right now of approximately $20 million.
Right.
And, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And also just to reiterate that the $6.2 million bond, that money doesn't come into play till after you exhaust the equity partners and the loan facility. So basically, the township doesn't pay that money to the very end.
Well, look, just to remind the public and yourselves that we have an obligation to the added assessment document to pay back half of that money.
Correct.
Right. So the other half that you look at it, you would have issued bonds in order to do the downtown infrastructure work that would be required of you in order to get a project like this up and going. So again, from the standpoint of security and safety, I think that you'll be looking at a project that's going to have an overall capitalization structure of just north of $100 million, and you will have funded a small $6 million piece of that, of which you would have funded on streets and roads and landscaping and utilities that would be needed in order to support a project of this magnitude in the downtown zone anyhow.
All right. And you've gotten infrastructure assistance from other municipalities, am I correct?
We have gotten other financial assistance, right? But and for sometimes percentage-wise significantly more money. I think what is being clear today, right? There is a dramatic shift. It's both sociological, it is lifestyle related, right? There's a shift back to our sort of developed downtown cores, and I think we see other townships, and I would certainly say this to the planning board members of West Orange as well, right? That we see certain towns taking a very proactive approach to understanding that not just the millennials of the world today, but empty nesters, right, that are coming down, right? The baby boomers that have been paying their property taxes and living in their house, who've got their kids out of the house, but still have ties and connections to the community, still love New Jersey, still support New Jersey, still like everything that New Jersey is about, and don't want to leave the state. We see them as a large cohort component of supporting and moving into these downtown zones, right, and wanting that lifestyle and that support. And there are towns that are taking very proactive measures in terms of changing their zoning plans, not just sort of redevelopment components within it, but wholesale changes to their zoning plans. I'll give Englewood as an example in Bergen County that I know, changed their entire downtown zone to permit 5 stories above retail to encourage residential development and/or commercial development. They built parking garages to support parking for additional demand in that, foreseeing this coming. I know Summit, in particular, has had legislation on its book that has been contemplating for quite some time doing. Morristown is a perfect example of a township, right, that 10 years ago, people were afraid to walk on the green in Morristown. And look what redevelopment activities has occurred in Morristown and what the Parking Authority has been able to accomplish in that downtown, probably one of the hottest downtown zones right now in the state, right, where because of it, all elements of property value have risen. Residential property values have risen, home values have risen, apartment values have risen, retail rents have risen, retail values have risen, and commercial office properties, which have been dying, people think, in New Jersey. We're doing a project in downtown Morristown right now. We're getting rents in excess of $40 a foot. Unheard of, while everybody else in New Jersey says the average is 20. People want to be in these developed downtown suburban communities because there's heart to them, there's life to them, there's services, there's amenities. You've got a jewel in this downtown. We saw it 10 years ago. We still see it today. We're really looking forward to completing this project.
Thank you. My colleagues, okay. Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you for being here. Good luck with the project, sir. Okay. Do my colleagues have any other questions for our council, our development council, or for the developer?
I have a
Councilman
question
Cirillo?
for our redevelopment council. This is,
Cordetto, good evening.
Good evening,
Introduce
Ms.
yourself.
Presidio.
Just
I'm sorry.
introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good evening. Jennifer Credidio. I'm a partner with McManamon, Scotland & Bauman, located in Roseland. We serve as Special Redevelopment Council to the township.
Okay, just a quick question. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Ms. Credidio, for being here tonight, helping us navigate this process. I just want to reference the modification agreement that we approved August 11th. There's a section in there, Section 2, Item C, about a negotiation period of 6 months. Can we talk a little bit about what that is? I'm just afraid of additional delays down the road. It talks about negotiating certain terms of the agreement. What role does the council play in that process? Would that mean that, some of those, I guess some of those issues will need to be revisited?
So let's talk for a minute as to the execution of documents generally. In August, you approved a new redevelopment agreement with DGP Urban Renewal LLC, which is a joint venture of Dune and Prism, and Greenfield. You authorized an amendment to the existing 2006 agreement to remove the redevelopment rights from Prism Green Associates 4 LLC with respect to phase 1 of the project. So at the same time that we're giving the rights to DGP Urban Renewal, we've got to take those rights out of the 2006 agreement. You authorized an assignment and amendment of the infrastructure construction agreement with respect to phase 1, and you authorized an amendment and assignment of the financial agreement with respect to phase 1. All of those documents would be executed concurrently and at the time of property transfer, which is expected to occur concurrently with the loan closing. So it's not necessarily so much that the loan closing is a condition to that transfer, but you need the site ownership and the obligations and rights to be in the same party. If you did not do it in that order, you would have the result that the property owner would have obligations to the township, or would not have obligations to the township, and the party that had obligations to the township wouldn't have site control. So those two things, the execution of the documents, the transfer of the rights and obligations, they need to occur at the same time as the property transfer so that the rights and duties travel with the property. With respect to 2C, the modification agreement to which Councilman Cirillo is referring is the modification agreement which removes those rights to phase 1 from the Prism Green Associates 4 entity, and also provides that the township and the redeveloper will renegotiate the 2006 agreement with respect to the other phases of the property, not phase 1.
Got it.
So that negotiation that's set forth in that agreement will have no impact on the process or the progress forward for the phase 1 project.
So one more follow-up question,
Sure,
Council
please.
President. You talked about the property transfer. This property transfer, would it take the same form as a regular closing process of real estate? And if that's the case, that also is time-consuming? There's a lot of paperwork, there's title issues, surveys, and all that?
That's my understanding, but I don't know, I can't speak to how time-consuming any particular closing is. I'm sure that all the parties are working toward the due diligence that needs to occur in connection with a property transfer, and it largely overlaps with the due diligence that the lenders, I'm sure, are engaging in, and the due diligence that Dune engaged in connection with negotiating this deal with their joint venture partners.
Well, thank you, Jen. Mr. Didio, I just wanted to make point that, there's a lot of due diligence ahead, which may result in a lot of delays. That is just a technicality. It's just part of the process. It's part of the redevelopment process. The closing process, the issue of these documents that need to be revisited or executed. The whole loan process, I'm actually surprised that it's gone this quick. So I don't know when this gets started, but I'm very impressed that, whatever banking institution you're using has moved this quickly and that you're that far along in the process. Because that could be very time consuming. So that's the point I wanted to make, and thank you for clarifying, because I wasn't sure of that 6-month process, but it doesn't relate to phase 1. It's as we move forward. So maybe some of the questions that the councilman was asking may be relevant if we're revisiting those future items.
Those negotiations haven't yet commenced, but surely they
to an extent, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you,
No,
Councilman.
and to your point, Councilman, any capital project, any redevelopment issue, any new construction always requires the due diligence process of review and consent by the lenders, the owners, and developers, and when it comes to transfer of property. Plus any history, any lien conditions, or all that, all come into play. I mean, the research has to be, or has Councilwoman Castellino would understand with her background in real estate. So,
Sure.
Councilwoman, do you have anything to add to the point?
No, I was just going to concur with my colleague. It is a lengthy process. Commercial closing, 6 months easily. It could take, if not longer. I work for, my background is I'm a title officer for a title agency that handles commercial properties. So it is a lengthy process with a lot of due diligence. So I'm fine with Mr. Diaz's statements as far as his commitment with the loan. Again, you know, once it goes into final underwriting and everything is finalized, nothing's ever done until it's finally done. So I guess basically with what I heard this evening, to sum it up, the public probably shouldn't expect to see exterior vertical structure to the spring. And I assume administration, part of your job and due diligence is to keep in contact to make sure the schedule is being completed as per the agreement. So I just wanted to, I'm comfortable with the statements here this evening. You know, time will tell. So as soon as we get the agreement, we know the loan commitment is secured, and that's finalized. And it is, Councilman, with closing documents, agreements, that all is finalized at the closing table. So
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you.
I'm fine with
Council-
this statement this
sorry.
evening.
Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. Councilman Kukoviac.
I just wanted to follow up when everybody else was talking about this. You may recall at the August meeting, I asked Dune's attorney with some skepticism as to how he thought that he was going to get a $70 million construction loan completed by September 30th. And while he didn't go on the record as saying that was a done deal, I mean, he really wouldn't talk at all about it. I just noted that in the 2015 documents, it said start construction by September 30th. And because of the fact that we're talking about a $70 million loan, there's only so much construction that can occur without the loan closing. It's just the whole idea of commercial development is to try to use as much borrowed money as you can. So I was skeptical that they could get it then, and now it turns out that it might be another 60 days from here. We're already a month past the date. So I do understand the challenges of this, but, and I was surprised even in August that they were talking about a September 30th construction start date.
It's a good point, but they asked, and if I could just correct me, you are using your own equity money right now for the current construction that's going on by both.
There's $30-some million of construction that will occur prior to the first draw of the loan, even though the loan will be closed.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're basically, the wherewithal to go ahead and start, moving on with the construction, asbestos abatement, anything else is all being covered through the equity partners.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Crudetto? Yes, Councilman.
Yes, thank you. Perhaps you could explain the whole escrow process in relatively simple English so that everybody understands that previous reference? And certainly, it would help me understand it better.
Sure. With respect to the joint venture agreement, the parties to the joint venture have executed signature pages which are being held by their counsels in escrow pending the finalization of the transaction. With respect to the other documents, they have not yet been executed. They're not being held in escrow, and there's really no legal reason for them to be.
Okay, so maybe you could distinguish between the two. What are the documents that are held in escrow, and why are they held in escrow? And then when you say the other documents, what other documents are you talking about?
There's one document, the joint venture agreement. The signature pages for the joint venture agreement are being held by the parties to the joint venture agreement, by their counsels in escrow pending the consummation of the transaction. The documents that the township is a party to, as it is not a party to the joint venture agreement, those documents will be executed by all parties at the consummation of the transaction, concurrently with the closing of the loan and the transfer of the property.
So Mr. Diaz, I think, made a bit of a reference that there is no agreement in force right now, but that he was still going forward with this, or PRISM is still going forward with it. Again, did I understand that correctly?
That's accurate.
Okay, so...
Because as I had explained, those documents would be executed concurrently with a property transfer so that the owner of the property is the one that is in privity of contract with the municipality.
Okay. So if those documents don't have any effect right now, it's as if they don't exist at this point, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Could you tell me when you explained to the council, or where in the documents, that it talked about that these documents would remain unexecuted for, at this point, 3 months past the time that the council voted on them?
I don't remember precisely when we may have covered that topic, Councilman, but you would not execute a document with respect to property and payments in lieu of taxes and obligations with respect to a property with a party that did not have ownership rights. I mean, it's sort of a basic underlying tenet of agreements.
And that wasn't in any of the documents that were provided, that we voted on in August 2015, correct?
Well, the forms of the documents would not have made property acquisition a condition because property acquisition would have occurred at the time of the document. But I'm pretty sure that the financial agreement, for example, represents that DGP Urban Renewal is the owner of the property. So by its terms, it contemplates that DGP Urban Renewal be the owner of the property at the time that document is executed.
And that's what you're saying, that's what the documents that the council reviewed and voted on actually specify that?
I'm pretty sure. I'd have to refresh my recollection, but the financial agreement usually makes a statement as to ownership.
Okay. So tell me what happens if DGP does not qualify for the construction loan, does not actually get the construction loan. What happens?
We'll have to revisit it at that time. I don't want to speculate as to a hypothetical, but if this particular construction loan doesn't close, we'll have to see what other options they're engaging in and whether they wish to move forward with the project.
As you know, as you're aware of, PRISM cured its most recent notice of default yesterday by paying the balance of their delinquent property taxes. If in this interim period, PRISM does not, let's just say PRISM again goes into delinquency on the November 1st property taxes, issued a notice of default, and this time they don't pay the taxes. Where does that leave us in terms of both the current redeveloper and also the redevelopment documents that are pending in escrow right now?
I think I've stated a couple of times now that the redevelopment documents are not pending in escrow. They will be executed at the consummation of the transaction. With respect to ongoing obligations, unless and until the documents that you approved in August, the 2015 documents, as we've been referring to them, are executed. The 2006 redevelopment agreement, as modified by the 2014 modification agreement for Phase 1, are the documents that remain in effect, and they are the documents pursuant to which the township issued the default notice with respect to non-payment of taxes. So they will continue to be in effect until and unless those replacement documents, for lack of a better phrase, are executed.
Okay, I'll try to rephrase that. What happens if PRISM is defaulted out of its designation as the exclusive redeveloper before the loan documents, the loan closes and all of this is supposed to take place? What happens? Again,
Councilman, I'm going to decline to speculate or enter into a hypothetical. I would posit for the body that in the event of default, not a default, but an event of default which contemplates a cure period and a cure that has not been met, and the exercise of remedies by the township under the existing documents, that we would likely be in a litigation scenario. And I'd be happy to explore that further with the governing body if they wish in an executive session, but I don't think that it's an appropriate topic for open session.
You wrote the notice of default letter on September 25th and a notice for a demand for a progress report on September 25th.
That's correct.
The council wasn't told about that until the October 13th council meeting. Is there some reason why you would not let the council know that you were taking this drastic action?
A point of information.
Yes, Councilman?
Council
If you could
President,
explain that.
isn't it true that it's the administration that administers the redevelopment process, and therefore the attorneys communicate with the administration, and it's the administration that communicates with the
Does.
council in regards to...
Absolutely correct.
That is
Thank
absolutely
you.
correct.
Thank you, Council President.
He sent us an email that he didn't have the attachment.
Correct.
I did not, what happened was there was they had a problem with their computer, and when I had got the original document, I didn't get the attachments. And then when I spoke to Ms. Credidio after the council meeting, when it was brought up, she resent me the documents. We sent them out the same day we got them.
Yeah.
To
We
all
had it the
council
next day after the last meeting.
Correct.
I got it from Mr. Trank, yes.
Yes.
No, we all got the email, yeah.
Yeah, we all got the email.
Yeah.
So is it the understanding between the redevelopment council and the administration that the council is not notified of something by you? In other words, your client is not the council, your client is the administration?
My client is the township, and we are directed by the administration and by the law director in the exercise of our representation to the township. Copies of the letter went to the business administrator, the mayor, and also the township clerk for, filing in the township records.
Okay. In your demand for progress, for a progress report, in the second paragraph, I'm just going to read this for background. As you know, at redeveloper's request, on August 11, 2015, the township authorized the transfer of Block 66, Lot 1, that's the 175 Main Street property.
Yeah,
where
the
the
battery
Edison
building,
Factory is,
correct.
from GP's 177 Main Urban Renewal LLC to DGP Urban Renewal LLC, and further authorize the execution and/or assignment of certain agreements in connection with that transfer. Those agreements, by their terms, provided for the commencement of construction at Block 66, Lot 1, no later than September 30th, 2015. Therefore, in addition to the information required by Section 4.3, subsection B of the redevelopment agreement, please also provide details as to the status and projected timing of the transfer of Block 66, Lot 1, as well as the status and projected timing of the commencement of construction on Block 66, Lot 1. Why did you write that demand for progress request?
We asked.
I was directed by the administration to issue a request for a progress report.
Right, and why is it that the administration wanted a progress report?
We asked at the last meeting.
Because we're monitoring the project. We're trying to
I'm sorry?
monitor the
Yeah,
project.
it's
I'll answer that
a
question. We are
self-evident.
trying to monitor the project. That's
Okay.
the answer.
Okay. So at that point, on September 25th, the administration was not aware of what the plans were by DGP and PRISM to move forward on this?
I don't understand that question.
You're asking for a progress report. Clearly, you didn't know what the progress was, and
They
I'm
gave
just
us a
wondering
progress report.
why it was that you sent the letter.
They gave us a progress report.
Right.
That was a decision made by the legal department.
I know I know, I understand. I'm just saying, what is it that you didn't know that you needed to know at that point in time?
We wanted a progress report on what
The
was going on.
reason
with
I'm
the
asking is because we
Yeah, the deadline.
excuse me, we had a council meeting on August 11th in which the council approved all of the documents. And I just assumed that we were moving forward on this, but then it turns out that we didn't actually execute the documents yet. And so we didn't actually have this 2015 agreement that everybody thought we did, or at least that I thought we had. So I'm trying to understand if there was some understanding between the parties as to what would be moving forward and how it would be moving forward. And if there wasn't that understanding, was that the reason why we sent the letter?
Well, I mean, we knew that the parties were pursuing their financing and preparing to consummate the transaction. But in addition to whatever conversations may have been had, it's always prudent to, document things in writing periodically.
Can I try to clarify something and correct me if
Please,
I'm wrong?
Mr. Sayers, please.
Because I don't always get things right according to the public in West Orange, so you correct me if I'm wrong. The documents that the council approved in August had to be approved by the governing body in order to allow Prism and Dune to negotiate a new equity partner. Is that correct or not correct?
They were necessary in order for them to pursue their conventional financing because the loan officers are going to want to see that.
That's what those 3 documents were about. Those 3 documents, Councilman, were not about you or any council member here approving the agreements. It was the council giving Prism and Dune the opportunity to negotiate agreement, and once that agreement was negotiated, then we would have to sign off on those documents. So I think you need to understand that's what you did in August. You keep coming back to the point about why you weren't notified about X, Y, and Z, because none of that ever transpired until Dune and Prism make that agreement, and once that agreement is done, the only way those documents become in effect simply is when the property is transferred to the new owner. Then once the property is transferred to the new owner, and jump in anytime you want and correct me if I'm wrong, once that property is transferred to the new owners, then the 215 agreement takes effect and the 214 or 213 agreement is not in effect, only on one property. Correct?
Just for a little bit of clarity. So the council authorized the forms of agreements. The council does not need to take any further action. But, the authorization of the forms is a preliminary step. The administration, the mayor, is authorized and empowered by the forms of those resolutions and ordinances to execute the documents at the proper time in consultation with council. And that proper time would occur at property transfer.
But the negotiations would be fruitless without those documents in place because they would have had to been approved by the town council.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
hope
Sayers.
that clarifies it for you.
I've always understood that. Thank you. Thank you,
And
Mr.
how did you understand that, Council President? Because I don't recall anything in writing at the August council meeting about this, and I don't remember any discussion that had to do with any of this. So tell me how
The
you knew.
discussion basically is a document that nothing really happens until you get a transfer of ownership. We were allowing the process to occur between Prism and Dune Partners. That's what we were allowing. And without that paperwork, nothing could go forward. That's what we were allowing. And Ms. Credetto has made it clear, as so has the other council made it clear, that nothing happens until there's a transfer of ownership of the property. That's how it works.
Maybe I can make it a little simpler. This is no different than any other contract the council approves for the mayor to sign. The mayor cannot sign that contract until everything is met within the contract. So all you approved was the fact that Prism and Dune were going to negotiate amongst themselves to bring in a new equity partner to be able to come in and do phase 1 of the project. Now, where we are today is all those things aren't in place yet, so we can't sign off on it until they're in place. Once they're in place, we sign off on it, and we move ahead. That's as simple as I can put it.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
gonna take time.
Sayers. Councilman, any other?
Yes. The reason I'm asking is because all of this has been going on, and as far as I know, the council was unaware of it. And so I'm trying to get an understanding that it probably would have been much easier for me to understand if
But what were you
the
unaware of?
administration-
That's what
Please,
I'm
could I
not
just
getting
finish? Could I just finish?
But you keep saying you were unaware of something. What were you unaware of when those documents were presented to you?
Could I just finish, please?
Sure.
Thank you. What I'm trying to find out is information that perhaps if we had gotten it contemporaneously, it would have been easier to understand as opposed to getting this all weeks later. So, for example, the demand letter was sent out on the 25th. The demand for a progress report was sent out on the 25th. We actually had council meetings subsequent to that in which we weren't told. We were never sent an email about it.
What does that have to do with what you were aware of when you voted on August 11th? You said that you were not aware of certain things on August 11th. Tell me what you were not aware of.
Mr. Sayers,
or why you were not aware.
Mr. Sayers, I'm happy to engage in the question that you asked.
So you asked the question, not me.
I'm in the middle of trying to ask my question.
You keep
and I would
asking the
appreciate
same question.
I would appreciate it if you wouldn't interrupt me when I'm trying to speak.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the letters were sent out on the 25th. We
Correct.
were told about it at the the second September council meeting, and we were told about the delinquent property taxes at the October 13th meeting. We weren't told about the demand letter, even at the demand for progress report, even at the October 13th meeting.
Let me ask you a question. If you were told about those letters on the 25th meeting, what difference would that make to the council? What could this council have done at that point? What difference would that have made?
Here's the question I'd like to ask. Why
Answer
is
my
it,
question, though. What difference would it make
you
to the
still
council?
haven't answered my question because you haven't allowed me to finish it. Why is it that you did not tell us on September 25th
First of
about
all,
what was,
I didn't have-
excuse me, could I just finish my
Go
sentence?
ahead.
Thank
I've
you.
already answered this question twice,
you.
but go ahead.
Why you didn't tell us on October 25th about either of these letters, and why on October 13th you only told us about the delinquent taxes letter, not the other letter?
That's not true. All three of those letters went out to every council person the next day. And I have the email here if you'd like to see it. All three of those documents went out to the council
We did
the
get
next
it. I
day.
received it.
Mr. Sayers, why did you not tell us on September 25th or sometime subsequent to
I
that?
told you 3 times.
You made a mistake.
When I got the email, I did not get the attachment for some reason. And when I went back to look for the attachment, I couldn't find the attachment. The attachment was then resent by Mrs. Credidio, not just to me, but to the clerk's office. And when I got that attachment, actually, it went to Mr. Trank's office. When he got the other document, we released that document the next day. But I still want to ask a question to you. What difference would it make if you got it on the 25th? You couldn't have done anything about it. The council couldn't have done anything about that. That's an administrative matter. And we took the administrative action to push the redeveloper into a position to get him going on this project. That's what we did. Now, I don't understand why we're going back and forth with this question.
Because I'm trying to understand why it is that you didn't tell us. Now, let me just see if I can put it in perspective.
So why does it matter now? a month later?
Because this constantly happens. Do you remember, Councilman McCartney, do you remember the 2014 redevelopment documents that were changed and the council was never told about it, let alone talked to about it? The last time that the mayor sent a notice of default letter, he didn't tell us about it either.
It's an administrative action. It's not a legislative action. I
Is
don't
it,
know how many times I got to tell you that.
is it just me? Did the rest of the council, you're not concerned about any of this?
Councilman, I don't send out letters.
Wait.
Wait, can I just say something? I'm going to say one last thing, and then you guys can discuss it all you want. We make decisions every day on behalf of the administration. We do not notify the council on those decisions, ever, unless a legislative action is required, period. That's how this works. If there's a legislative action required, we would then notify you. Now, at the last meeting, you said, well, we'd like copies of those letters. Fine. I went out the next morning, got copies from our attorney, Mr. Trank got them, and we sent them out the same day. So I still don't know why we're spending 45 minutes on the same question.
Okay, I'll
It's
try to make it.
It's not a legislative action. It's an administrative action.
I'll try to make it clear. It's surprising to me that you, as the business administrator, would not have known about these actions taking place on this, the largest and most significant project that the town has pending.
I didn't
That
say
we're-
I was not aware of it. I said I didn't get the attachments. I was aware of the email. I saw the email, but I did not get the attachments. And even if I got the attachments that day, I would have never sent them out to the council. Unless the town attorney or a redevelopment attorney said send them to the council. That's how you would get them, because I have to work under legal restrictions also as the business administrator. I don't make those decisions. That's it. That's the bottom line.
So are you saying that the legal department told you you couldn't send those documents to us?
Excuse me?
Are you saying that the legal department told you you couldn't tell us?
No, I didn't say that.
okay.
You're putting words in my mouth. I
I'm
never
just
said
asking you a
that.
question, Mr. Sayers.
I did not say
So
that.
What I'm trying to
No,
find out
let me
is,
finish.
on September 25th, there were the 2 letters that went out. They came back
3
on
letters went out on the 25th, if you looked at your email. There were 3.
Yes, there was 3,
It's 3.
There were 3.
the very
There-
next day.
There were 2 letters, no, I'm saying the original letter, September 25th, not a couple of
But
weeks ago.
There were two letters
Okay.
that went out and one letter that came back.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Credidio, because that's what I'm trying to say. Not only were the letters sent out on the 25th, they came back on the 29th. A clock started ticking on your notice of default that they could blow up this entire project,
That's correct.
and we weren't told about it. And even at the October 13th meeting, where you told us about the delinquent taxes and the notice of default, you didn't tell us about the demand for a progress report. We had to find out the next day when you sent it to us
That's correct.
about that.
That's
You didn't
correct.
tell us about that either.
I didn't see those letters. I did not have the attachment in my email. I don't know how many times I have to tell you that. I got the email, and the attachments were not on the email. I called Ms. Credidio the next day if she wants to say, yes, I did or not.
That's
And I
accurate,
said, could you
yes.
please send me the email with the attachments? She sent me the email with the attachments. I spoke to Mr. Trank, I spoke to Ms. Credidio, and we released those documents to the council. But I still don't understand why that's important to you, because even if you got those letters on the 25th, the 27th, the 29th, whatever date you got them, what difference would that make? It was already, the legal action is already in progress. You have, the council, with all due respect, has nothing to do with that legal process. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Can I make a recommendation?
Councilwoman?
Being, and I apologize.
No.
Councilman, because I hear the frustration, and, you know, when I sat on the school board, and whenever we had a large project, this is a large project, the public's very concerned about it, the council's very concerned about it. I understand your, the requirements you have and your position. How about once a month, while this project is moving along, that you just give us an update, just an update, whether, and if it's status quo, nothing's going on, that will be the update, but then there won't be this going back and forth of, I didn't get this, I didn't get that. I understand, because there's a lot on the line here. This has been a long time coming, this project, and there's a lot of frustration. I'm getting caught up with it as quick as I can. However, but I think it might be helpful if there is a monthly, just a monthly update. Then there won't be any confusion of what we were given, what wasn't, even though we did ask for that report and you gave it to us the very next day, the copy. So I appreciated that, the information. But maybe just a monthly update. It could be a 2-minute update.
Fair enough.
And that might have helped this situation along a little bit.
And to answer your question, I think
Not,
information
excuse me,
of
not
this-
with all the attorneys, just from the administration.
Thank you,
guys.
Councilwoman.
I think it's a fine idea. To answer your question, we are indeed the legislative branch. We're the elected representatives of the people on such significant happenings on a project that, you know, I know people don't like to be reminded of this. This has been stretching on and not happening for 9 years. That this is significant information that I think, at the very least, the council people should know about, and perhaps the people out in the residents
Councilman,
who are
when
knowing
you
about
asked,
that.
when you
But we-
asked for those documents, you got them the next day.
Yes, Mr. Sayers, but
The next day.
Mr. Sayers, when this was done on September 25th, and when the response was coming in on September 29th, you didn't tell us. You didn't tell us until October 13th. Who knows why you decided to tell us on October 13th? Because
Okay,
it
but
could
if
have
you have a
happened.
monthly
I
update, you
didn't-
wouldn't be having these long
Don't make
conversations.
any comments that I didn't tell you because I didn't want to tell you. That's not correct.
that's not
I've
right.
told you 10 times during this conversation what happened. If you want to believe that or not, you believe it, okay? But don't say that I didn't tell you because I didn't want to tell you. That's not true.
I didn't say that.
Yes,
I don't
you
know.
did. You
No, I
just
didn't.
said that. It's
No,
on
I
tape.
didn't. No, I didn't.
Right.
I'm sorry if that's the way it's coming across.
Can we
If I could just make one more point and we could go. When you send a notice of default to the redeveloper, or any redeveloper, or when you send a request for a progress report, could you just let us know? Is there some reason why you wouldn't let us know?
I will ask our town attorney and the mayor if in fact that's how they want to do that, because it's an administrative action. I will ask them if they want to, when the next time that happens, if they want to send it directly to the council, we'll do that. And my guess is they would have no problem with that.
Thank
But I
you.
just need you to understand, it's an administrative action, not a legislative action.
I haven't argued with you about that, Mr. Sayers.
Council President?
Yes,
We have a lot of people here who really aren't involved in this discussion, and
Right.
can we let them go?
Sure, just to make, is there any questions for any Dune partners for Dune Realty? If not, we appreciate their attendance tonight and their input and their belief in the Township of West Orange. So if there's no questions for the Dune representatives, I suggest they should, I think, and Councilman, do you have any last questions? So we can move this along to,
No, good.
No? Okay, Ms. Cordillo, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your time. Please keep us in the loop. Please feel free to, just let us know what's going on. That's all we ask. Thank you.
You're not going to let us know.
Okay. Moving right along, I'd like to go to discussion on 2015 best practices inventory. Mr. Gross?
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Gross.
I'm pleased to report that we did our best practice inventory this year, and once again, we were receiving 100% of our aid. It's been distributed to council. We'll be putting this up on the website. If council has any questions about it this evening, I'll be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, I think the township has done a great job.
Thank you. So we've done good. Mr. Sayers, you concur?
I concur.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gross on best practices?
Could we see a copy of the thing you were just waving in your hand
Oh, sure.
when you get a chance?
Yeah, we didn't
We
get a
did not
copy
get a
of
It's
that.
copy
going
of
to be
it.
hard to
We-
discuss it without
Yeah,
that
we
in front of
didn't
us.
get the copy.
John, can you
copy.
talk about anything from last year to this year that changed or oops, sorry.
We take one, I'll take
We do it that way?
The questions, the new questions come on, old questions go off, so that to the extent
Okay.
that there are changes, that's pretty much. In terms of, we're close to the same. I think we did 88% this year. I think we did 90% last
We need
year.
one
That's
more.
one question different.
It's okay. I can't look at it now anyway.
So I don't think there's anything substantially different than last year.
Would it be okay if I reserved any sort of comment until the next council meeting where I have a
Sure,
chance to?
sure, absolutely.
Sure, make that note that Councilman is
I like that
requesting.
it's front and back, but it looks like it's about 20
Yeah,
pages
there's
long.
a lot to read here.
Well,
Yeah.
right.
There's a lot.
I think my question was if anything was outstanding last time, has anything been put in place to address issues that were outstanding?
We certainly strive, if, for instance, the things that we didn't do this year, or didn't get points for this year, we strive. However, there, for instance, one of the issues, or just it's a question, is that we've never scored on. It is whether or not we have a stricter pay-to-play ordinance than the state. And that's a policy decision for the council. It's not something internal that we would do. The council's made a decision through its ordinances. If it decides that it wants to do something different than what the state statute requires, or then council can do that. So that type of thing, those are going to carry forward.
Right.
So,
Well, there's a scoring on this. Do we get a copy of the scoring, or?
oh, it's on the back.
On the back.
Okay.
Right here.
So we're scored 88%. You have to score at least 80 to maintain your aid.
Is there an improvement plan that goes along with this?
Is there?
I'm sorry?
On the items that we didn't score, that we have the 12% on, is there an improvement plan that goes along with those
Well,
items?
again, there's a question as to whether or not, right, the state comes basically and said, these are the things we think, the state thinks are best practices.
Okay.
West Orange and every other, the other 565 municipalities may agree with those items and may not agree with those items. So this, as we were just talking about before, West Orange has the pay-to-play ordinance as specified by the state. You can have a stronger one. If West Orange decided that's what they wanted to do, that there was a need to do that, then we would be able to score those points. But we don't, and that's one of the reasons there's a range, because it's left open. And quite frankly, as administrations at the state change, so does the focus of these questions. So, as things
Fair.
progress, year to year, you get different interpretations of what best practices are. I think the important thing is that we're doing 88% of what the state says is best practices. I think that's significant.
Just to simplify it a little bit, it changes every year. There's basic questions that are there every year, but every year there's new things. Like John and I went over some of them this year. Some things they put heavier restrictions on, some they don't. So every year we try to meet what we can meet, and we do work to try and change some of the things that we need to change, and sometimes we're able to get that accomplished, sometimes we're not.
Like, one of the questions is are council people required to go for education and seminars?
That was my question, because I had
Okay.
a lot of training as a school board member.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Oh,
Yeah, we are.
The council is not required to. There's no ordinance that says you have to do it.
Yeah,
Does
school
it-
board,
do-
you have
do-
to.
Do members of the council do it? Yes, I believe they do. But we don't get points for that because there's no requirement. That's the kind of silly nuance, quite frankly. You know, if the question were, does your council go and seek out these types of education? The answer would be yes, but it's no requirement for them to do it, so we don't score.
By virtue of the fact that we don't require it, we don't get any points for that, even though everybody does it.
Yeah, it's kind of like CUSAC,
Yeah,
education law.
And some of them are pretty ridiculous, and it amazes me. My conversation has always been that the state puts out these best practices, they apply to municipalities, but they don't apply to the state. So,
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
we try to do the best we can.
Okay,
okay.
moving right along. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you.
But, you know, if you have any questions about it, any particular one, just give me a call, and we can talk about it, you know.
Yeah,
what-
I like some
what we're
information
doing,
on
what
the-
we're
on
not
the tra-
doing,
on the
or
training, I like.
what, frankly, if it's something we'd say, well, geez, it's not for the administration to do, it's something, that's a legislative action.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, my council colleagues. Next, any council liaison announcement? Councilwoman McCartney.
Get out to vote, November 3rd. It's the only announcement I have. Assembly and Board of Ed. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
And if you have any questions, you can contact the clerk's office. Anything else, Councilwoman?
And that's it.
Okay. Councilwoman Castellino, any comments on your council liaison, or any?
Well, I have a few Halloween dates here, if anybody's
Quite a
interested.
few. Quite a few things.
How many
going
Are we at
on.
that part of the program?
Yes.
Tell me where, no,
Well,
I
what would you-
don't have
Only if
any
you're in
lists.
costume.
Let's see, the farmer's market has 3 to 5 on Friday, a pumpkin painting, downtown farmer's market. And then later that evening, Halloween happenings up at O'Connor Park at 6 o'clock, their costume parade. And 7 to 9 is the Spooky Woods. And the West Orange Rotary Club will be there with refreshments as usual every year, donating their time. And Saturday at OSPAC is Trunk or Treat from 2:30 to 5:30 up at OSPAC. So lots to do. And next month, if you want to start planning now, the West Orange Scholarship Committee is sponsoring a Harvest Moon evening at the Wilshire Hotel on Friday night, November 20th, $65 per person. It's a dance, DJ, light fair, and all the proceeds go to the West Orange Scholarship Foundation to give scholarships to the West Orange High School students.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Those are all my announcements.
Thank you. Councilman Kukoviac.
Thank you. The Open Space Committee met last week, and I failed to bring my notes with me, but we were presented with a opportunity to spend perhaps a few $1,000s from the Open Space Trust Fund to connect a part of our township to the hiking trail that basically runs east-west across all of Essex County.
Oh, nice.
And it's on property, probably only between 2,500 and 3,500 feet, where there is not a trail along the area that is to the east of the Vizcaya and Bel Air properties. And we're going to get some more information and perhaps make a recommendation to the council sometime soon. but I'm told it's really nice, level hiking, and is good for cross-country skiing when it snows. So next time I'll have more detail on this, and I apologize, but I just wanted people to know.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Cirillo.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone about Remembrance Day, Veterans Day, and that's November 11th. Is it at 10 a.m., Karen? 10 or 11 a.m. in front of the courthouse, right outside on Main Street. We have a beautiful ceremony remembering all the veterans that from West Orange that have served our country and paid the ultimate sacrifice. So I invite members of the public to come out on that Wednesday. It's a beautiful, beautiful event, very, very touching and heartfelt. So hope to see everyone there.
Thank you, Councilman. I just think we thank you, Councilwoman Castellino, for bringing up the farmers market and the pumpkin painting. It's a big hit every year, and the kids have a great time. So thank you for mentioning that. I'd just like to bring out a point of information to my colleagues and to the residents. The County of Essex a week ago enacted an ordinance to mandate that regional banking and banking facilities, reinvest back into communities where they make their money from. It's a very great initiative. It impedes the banking. If you're going to make money from our residents and from our communities, you need to reinvest it within our communities. And also, when you're making loans, you need to take away those stigmas. We do have a town ordinance, I believe, and I think we'd like to relook at it. I would like my colleagues to relook at it, maybe put some more teeth in it. I've been in contact with Ms. Phyllis Lavallo-Kay with Citizens for New Jersey Action, and she's very excited about working with us and looking at our ordinance and piggybacking to the great initiative that the county is doing. So I'd just like my colleagues to be aware that I think it's something that we need to look into. It's something good. We need to have the banks reinvest in our community. They're making a lot of money. They're making, and they should show their support and their confidence like we ask everybody else to reinvest and help our residents, make their lives a lot better and make the community a lot better. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Council President, I just want to make the point, thanks to Susan McCartney, Councilwoman McCartney, the Veterans Day event is at 11 a.m. on Main Street. So again, it's a beautiful event, and I invite the public to come out.
Thank you.
11 a.m., and I do want to say that in regards to the banking institutions, we have some benevolent banking institutions in town. Every time we go there for a donation to any activity, just like we do in the general public, they're always there, just like members of our community in donating, whether it be financially or donating time. So I do want to say that they're very proactive.
We do. We just want to make sure they also do. There's more they can do for us other than they support our organizations, they contribute to our events. But there's also more that can be done from actually even the larger institutions that do business within the county and within the township. And that's what I'm looking for. So that if there's no other discussion, I'd like to make a motion to, now we go to our public meeting. Madam Clerk?
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. A notice of this meeting was mailed to the Star-Ledger and the West Orange Chronicle on December 1st, 2014. A notice of this meeting was also posted on the bulletin board in the Municipal Building, West Orange, and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk of the Township of West Orange on December 1st, 2014. Councilwoman Castellino?
Present.
Councilman Cirillo?
Present.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Present.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Present.
Council President Garino.
Present.
Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The council is now in their public meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this point in time, I would like to open the floor to public comment. Is anyone from the general public wishing to speak to the town council? Please, Ms. Anderson, would you please come up? Thank you. Our public information officer, welcome.
Good evening, Council. Susan Anderson, Public Information Officer. Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino, for mentioning the Halloween events.
Sorry, I took your
That's
thunder.
okay.
Sorry, I'm
That's all
getting
right.
used to the format.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot. I just wanted to add, at the OSPEC event on Saturday from noon to 6, there'll also be rides and bouncy houses along with the trunk and treat, and that starts at noon. Tomorrow, the Police and Clergy Alliance is holding their first meeting at 6:30 at the Tarnoff Cafeteria at the high school, and the public is invited to attend, so I would encourage everyone to come out and support that meeting. And that's about it. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Thank you very much. Okay. Is anyone else wishing to speak to the Township Council? Yes, Mr. Merrill. Thank you. Clemenson. Yes. Marielle, how are you? Good.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Your name and address.
Oh, sorry. Marielle Clemenson, 4 Cherrywood Circle in West Orange. I have questions about the resolutions. Is this appropriate for me to ask questions about different resolutions?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have 3 questions. The first one is about Resolution 254-15. Wondering, this is for subordination of mortgage. I guess these people had a mortgage with the West Orange HRP, Housing Redevelopment Plan, and they've now paid down their primary mortgage, and they actually have excess cash, but this particular resolution wants us to continue to subordinate the West Orange HRP mortgage to their new first mortgage. And I'm just sort of curious why that would be, and how does this plan work? Are they still qualified for this new plan, and what are the qualifications to stay in the housing redevelopment plan? That's one question. Second question relates to Resolution 256-15, which is about fire apparatus maintenance. And I noticed that the contract is being requested for 2 years with an option to extend for 1 year, and I'm just wondering if that's the typical length of time for contracts. It doesn't give you much wiggle room if you want to contest the rates that they're charging. I just was thinking more of an annual thing might give the township a better flexibility for rate negotiation. And my final question is on 262-15, which is the resolution authorizing a renewal prescription for drugs. First of all, this agency that we're using, it's called, what is it called? Benecor. Benecor or something. They're proposing an increase of 14%. And they're also asking for the term to be 14 months rather than 12 months. And so my question has to do with whether your plan, if the administration is planning on having Fairview review this and see what they can do to have a more reasonable rate increase. Are they going to be looking at other providers? Is there something about raising deductibles? What can you do to limit this type of expense? Those are my questions. Thanks.
Okay. Would we like the administration to answer those questions now instead of waiting till? Okay. Mr. Gross?
Sure. In reference to the subordination of the mortgage, in this particular program, if you qualify for work done on your house and we place a mortgage so that if you ever sell the house, we get repaid. If that particular property owner then wants to refinance their mortgage, if we don't subordinate, they can't refinance their mortgage, so they can't take advantage of lower interest rates. So it is a practice that we've had under these circumstances to subordinate our mortgages for them. With that. And I think that's reasonable in terms of promoting property owners to be able to take advantage of market rates. As far as the contracts, different types of contracts can have different contract lengths. The 2-in-1 gives us the ability we have experience with this particular vendor, so we're confident that the 2 years and then a 1-year extension gives us a maximum of 3, which is what we're allowed with these contracts. We didn't want to go for 3 years for the same reason that Ms. Clemenson said, but we think 2 years is a good time, and then renew again in a year. That gives us price protection for 3 years. So we'll be able to do proper planning on that. And as far as the Benecard is concerned, these rates already have been shopped by Fairview. They came back. We asked to get lined up on a 14-month contract. It wasn't that the vendor wanted that. We're trying to get them to expire, all of our contracts to expire on 12/31, and so that we have, from a budgeting point of view, when we know we can, whatever we budget for, that's going to be the actual expense. So we asked for a 14-month contract.
How much was the difference between their submission and then the CHOP? How much was the savings and reduction?
I'm sorry?
How much was the savings from the first time they sent the proposal for the rates and when they came back with the new?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, if you're asking what was the difference between the first run,
that's what I'm saying,
and the end run, it's anecdotal. I mean, we don't have a document on that.
Okay.
But from our understanding, it's significant. But that's the nature of the business. This was shopped with other vendors. Part of the problem is, and one of the questions was, what could we do in terms of deductibles and things of that nature? The truth of the fact is, we can't change our benefit without negotiating with our unions. So it's not that we can negotiate different deductibles. We have what we have, and unless we can negotiate differently with our unions. So these are shopped. These were shopped with other plans that were equitable, or and the same as, better than, or same as, which is what our terminology is in our contracts. And we believe this represents our best option.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the Township Council? Yes, Mr. Meyerowitz. Good evening. Before you start, Mark, if you give me a second. Mariel, if you feel you need more definitive answer or anything else, I'm sure you could email, Mr. Gross and everything else, and he'll give you more detail. And you can share it with us, too. Thank you.
Okay, Mark Meyerowitz, 19 Howell Drive, in case you want to come and visit, that's where you can find me. Mr. Diaz made a very good point about parking. When he was talking about all the different towns and how they're flourishing, he did mention to put in that Morristown has parking. And I know for myself, Caldwell has a parking deck. When you go to Milburn, they just built a new parking deck. Montclair has parking decks all over the place now. And that's something in West Orange we don't have. And a few years ago at one of the council meetings, I suggested that the township take a long-term view and to put together a long-term plan. So I would strongly recommend that the township maybe put together a committee of 3 or 4 people who can look at different properties downtown, speak to different property owners who might be willing to sell. Maybe you can conglomerate a few properties together to build a deck, because that's the key to any redevelopment. People need a place to know where they can easily park. Mr. Diaz also said that he feels he is down about $20 million on the project, and he didn't seem overly concerned about that. The council, you seemed more concerned about that figure than he did. But I would also like to remind you that the homeowners who live in the area are also down a lot in their own property values because of the condition of the downtown now. If you look at the Barton area, it's a pile of rocks. I mean, it's a huge pile of rocks. The downtown, the building itself, the Edison factory building, is an eyesore. I mean, it's good they cut the grass, but that's got to get built. And where CVS is, that building is also an eyesore. And this takes away value from homeowners and from housing. And I don't think, as much as you want to feel sorry for Prism Development that they might be sitting on a loss, you should also keep in mind that the homeowners and taxpayers of West Orange, whom you represent, you don't represent Prism, whom you represent, are also sitting at a loss, and that you should be doing everything in your power to get this project on its way. I believe I read in the Chronicle that comments by the mayor that construction would start by September 30th. But I don't see why the mayor would say that with all this going on about the paperwork not being in, not being in order and taking a long time for commercial real estate deals to be settled. I mean, which everybody knows. I don't understand why the mayor would have come out and said, unless I'm mistaken or I misunderstood, that construction would begin by September 30th, which, other than cutting the grass and putting in the, I don't see, construction has started. So I think, I don't know, maybe it's for public relations reasons he would say something like that, but I think that the township deserves a more circumspect appraisal from its top office holder. So, I hope it's not turning into a political discussion, that is looking for good PR. And finally, you made a comment about looking into the banking laws. I'm very concerned about that because the states regulate the banks, the federal government regulates the banks, but every time an entity tells the bank how to run their business, it backfires somehow. And I don't know if it's really the business of the local town to tell the banks how to run their business. I'm not related to any banks. I'm not speaking for them. They can speak for themselves. I'm sure they're doing very well. But we have to be very wary of government interfering with the private enterprise, especially if the banks are doing well. And have you gotten any complaints from anybody that the banks are turning them down or that they're not fulfilling their functions? As Councilman Cirillo said, the banks are very generous in town. So I don't know if we really want to mess with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Mrs. Morelli.
Rosary Morelli, Ralph Road. I came here tonight to speak about certain issues, but I sat here and listened to Mr. Diaz. Mr. Guarino, under your watch, you allowed his partner to use vulgar, filthy language in this chamber.
What did you say?
Mr. Cohen spoke to the fact that I don't want to go and use the verbiage, that we, the town people, were saying things about his business that was all a vulgar comment. I also want to comment on Mr. Diaz. It was good to see him here tonight, because last time I saw him was in this room. Ms. McCartney was there. I see one of the members of the planning board, Mr. Krakowiak, was here. And this upstanding professional businessman stood at this lectern, held onto it, and banged his head on the lectern, having a temper tantrum.
You forgot, I was here too.
Were you here? What a display of professionalism. And that was allowed. That's disrespectful to the citizens in this township. To use that vulgarity, profanity, and his arrogance here again tonight. As Yogi said, it was deja vu all over again. These words, he didn't even have to stand here. He could have gone over them again and again. He could have recorded them. I'm sick and tired of having to come to council meetings and be disrespected and not have a president who can control this meeting. Anyhow, at the October 13th council meeting, when this dialogue went on about the default letter and who knew, who didn't know, who was there, who wasn't there, I was really confused. I was even more confused when several friends who go on to this new blog in town wrote about, I didn't read their blogs, but obviously or allegedly they were very caustic. And the mayor responded and went on in his usual way. He gets a little convoluted in his rhetoric. He made a statement here. The business administrator, this is his letter, his blog. The business administrator was criticized for not knowing certain things, with the assertion that he was deliberately keeping things from the council or the public. In his defense, he was not part of the process of drafting or delivering the letters. That was handled by Redevelopment Council, that's council with an E, and the Township Council, council with an E, and myself. Perhaps he should have prepared more for the questions, expecting it. If he didn't know anything about it, how could he expect any questions? That's confusing. So this whole thing gets more and more confusing. Who knew it? When did they know it? What did they know? We sound like some congressional hearing. You're making faces, Ms. McCartney. What's your problem?
Finish your comment.
You obviously have a
1
problem.
minute. Finish your comment.
What?
You only have 1.5 minutes left. Finish your comments.
Are you the timekeeper now?
Yeah.
Are you the timekeeper? I could stand here and sing the Star Spangled Banner if I like,
Right ahead.
and for 5
In
minutes.
1 minute and 15 seconds.
Please.
I don't get it.
What a display of professionalism.
Thank you.
Really. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the Township Council? Yes, Mr. Eben?
Jerry Eben, Walker Road. I'm speaking just as a citizen, not as a member of the Planning Board, not as a member of the Downtown Alliance, not as a member of the community that's volunteered nearly 40 years of my life in this community on various things. But, I'm just really concerned. I'm an architect, and because I'm an architect, I may be a little bit more visual than maybe all of you. And I'm not, you all have different professions. But I constantly talk about this at the Planning Board about enforcement. I'm told by the chairman of the Planning Board that we're not the enforcement arm of the township, which I agree, we're not the enforcement arm of the township, but somebody is. And there are literally 1,000, maybe more, I didn't count them all, thousands of zoning violations in this town. And just to drive up and down the corridor and look at things that are on the corridor that I see every day. And one I pointed out to Nick this morning in the Supreme parking lot. I said the garbage that is there in the Supreme parking lot, I call it the Supreme parking lot, has been there for 3 weeks. And Nick said, well, he's throwing up his arms. He doesn't know what to do about it either. There is just so much garbage from one end of town to the other. Now, there was some mention about the paving and the sidewalks in the last, and one of the streets that was paved is Oxford Terrace. It's right up the street from me. Great job. They did a wonderful job. Nice sidewalks. But yet there's a house on Oxford Terrace that is in disrepair and has been in disrepair for longer than Sandy. And I've complained about it, and Council President, you've been there, you've taken your own picture of that property, and nothing changes. Nothing changes on that property. No one, if my snow doesn't get moved in 24 hours, I get a summons. All right? My property's kept clean. I pay somebody to do that because I can't do it anymore myself. But I got to tell you, from one end of the town to the other, the town looks like crap. And I'll use that word crap. And I'm just sick and tired of someone covering for other people who don't do their job right. There's 1,000, 10,000 violations. There's sign violations, there's garbage, and we just work so hard. The Planning Board worked so hard, along with the Downtown Alliance, to create a nice 7-Eleven. The dumpster doors on 7-Eleven are never closed, and the garbage is outside of the dumpster. Today there was a delivery truck at 11:30 delivering Coca-Cola. They're not supposed to deliver during the day. They're supposed to be delivering early in the morning. That's the condition of the Planning Board. So they didn't take care of the landscaping, the trees are dead. I can go on and on and on. What I would like to have, and I won't even talk about Mr. Diaz and about starting construction, because as an architect, what they did on the 30th wasn't starting construction. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm really concerned about is the way the town looks. And I got to tell you, you guys got to do something. You either got to talk to the administration about it, or you got to do it yourself. And you can't just bury your head in the sand. You really can't. Somebody has to take charge here and make sure that these zoning violations are taken care of, and that the conditions that the planning board, and I assume the zoning board, puts on applicants are followed up on. And if they're not followed up on, then, you know, why do we have a planning board or a zoning board? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eben. Mr. Puglisi. You and Victor must go out in the same place.
Hi, Anthony Puglisi, representing County Executive Joe DiVincenzo. I'm just going to be very brief because it's been a long meeting. You had a lot of Halloween events that you mentioned. Just one that I'd like to share with you that the county is hosting is Saturday, October 31st, from 4 to 8 p.m. at Turtleback Zoo. It's Halloween, also known as a safe trick-or-treating. We'll have stations set up throughout the zoo for people to walk through and do their trick-or-treating there. Just for a point of information, the zoo will be closed from 2:30 to 4, so we can prepare for that event. And more information is on the website at EssexCountyNJ.org.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to close public comment and open the floor to my council colleagues. Councilwoman McCartney.
Mariella, I hope all of your questions were answered as well. Mark, I wanted to address your parking deck. Part of that redevelopment plan consists of a 621 parking space parking deck. So part of the, I'm sorry I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there will be designated space for the residents of the building, and there will be space available for the public. So, good question, and it will be addressed in that. And good point about property value. That's why we're so frustrated, and that's why we want to move it forward. I don't know how to respond to Jerry's comment because we talk about it all the time. It is enforcement. We just had a resident come up about a gas station on Eagle Rock, and it was addressed. I know we have driven around, we meaning Jerry and I have driven around town, pointed out issues to be addressed. Unless we make a list, it's obvious to a lot of people, particularly you. You do drive along Main Street, and again, I still think as a downtown West Orange Alliance group can form its own task force and address the people along Main Street. I know you're shaking your head no, but it just seems like that's your vision, that's where you volunteer, and that would be one way to tackle it, creating a task force.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Castellino.
In regards to the ordinance with the subordination, just to make an analogy, whenever you have an equity line on your property, and you go to refinance, you'll always get the equity line subordinated, so it's the same situation here, where they're just going to subordinate that line of credit for the first mortgage. Parking, where's Mr. Myrowitz? I agree, driving up and down Main Street, and I'm glad there is a piece in the redevelopment, but there's always, you know, down further in other parts on Main Street, it's always good, but again, when property is available, and you need to visit that when the opportunities are there, and I hope getting more and more involved in the Downtown Alliance Committee and understanding their role, that I'm sure they're looking for those opportunities when they become available, and they can make them come to fruition. And Mr. Eben, I agree with you. I do see some, I don't know, I do see some, you know, with the maintenance issues, because I do live down the hill, and I do see that, and to your point, that is a good idea. But I also know, I once had when we were selling my mother-in-law's property, we had a container in the driveway, and I know they stopped by because they didn't like the way the contractors were throwing things. So I do also know they do check, but again, I know it's a matter of manpower, and I know you just hired, when I first came on here, you hired somebody else in that department. So I don't know how that's going or what the process is. I'm just getting familiar with it. I know also they're going to have a meeting with the Board of Ed as well in regards to the certificate of inhabitants, because it is all about enforcement and making sure the communication's there and trying to expedite all the phone calls that they have and whatnot, because I know in regards to the inhabitants ordinance, they have to try to streamline that process. So hopefully that meeting's going to happen, I think, November 12th with the residency officers to hopefully help that along as well. So maybe budget time, that could be, if it's still an issue, that could be something you could discuss in regards to more manpower. But right now, that's all I have. And thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Kukoviac.
Thank you. Ms. Clemenson, thank you for your questions. And I do get it when you asked about subordinating the mortgage, our mortgage. To build upon what Mr. Gross was saying, the money that funds these mortgages is part of the COA money that is raised from developers who build and increase the density in the town. And that money goes into a pool and it's given out in mortgages. And so you are correct. It's possible that by subordinating the township's mortgage, it could put us in a weaker position if something goes wrong. The theory, and I've raised this issue for several years, the theory is that because the money is there solely to help residents who need help fixing up their house, it's not the same as the township tax dollars being at risk. And so it does continue to help these homeowners, lower income, lower value houses build up their property, and as we're talking about improving the community, this really helps. But it's a good point that you made. Mr. Meyerowitz, I appreciate your comments, and just wanted to say that I am glad that there is going to be a garage, that there will be an increase in parking downtown around 175 Main. My memory, though, is that a lot of those 600 some odd parking spaces are not going to be set aside for non-residents. It's a very small number relative to
something like 133.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but I will defer to you, Councilwoman McCartney. You're the queen of the planning board. But I was disappointed that there wasn't as much parking as I was hoping for. Ms. Morelli, I appreciate your comments. I sometimes don't agree with what you say or how you say it, but I do respect that you are a resident here and we are your elected officials. We work for you, and I know sometimes it's difficult for me and perhaps others on the council to take the sort of criticism that we sometimes get, but I think it's also important to remember that we, if we want respect, we have to give respect. And I know your intentions are good. But whatever you say, you're exactly right. We should listen and see what we can do to follow your suggestions. Mr. Eben, I agree with you. I've driven around with you just in the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate you coming to the council and speaking a public comment so that more people will be aware. I was just going to ask Mr. Sayers, did you get enough information from what Mr. Eben was saying to direct somebody to take a look at these situations that he describes and see if they are, in fact, violations?
Absolutely.
Oh,
We'll take a
wonderful,
look at it.
wonderful.
We'll
So-
take a look at it.
Great.
I just want to say a couple things about our property maintenance. Councilwoman Castellino. It's been a long night.
Too many long names on this side of the public.
Councilwoman Castellino basically said it pretty well. I mean, it's really, it comes down to being an issue of having enough people to do what we need to do. This is a big town, and we try to do as much as we can do. And the second issue is that I want to make clear, and whether you agree with it or not, and I've had this discussion with several residents who we've spoken to with regard to property maintenance violations, we also try to work with the public. We have a lot of older people who own homes, who can't afford to fix them, and we try to work with them to get them fixed before we're bringing them into court and finding the monies. We also have a lot of people economically who obviously can't take care of the things they need to take care of, and we try to either push them into the COA program where they can get additional monies to try and help them out. But anything on a commercial property or a commercial building or anything like that, that is an issue that we need to deal with, and we try to deal with them as much as possible. A perfect example is the woman who was in here a couple weeks ago about Pleasant Valley Way. We had 5 people on that property for a week and a half, and it was all cleaned up and all nice, and I'll tell you what, I rode by there today, and it's in the same shape it was 2 weeks ago. So we're going to be out there again doing it, but, you know, it's very difficult, because the more, it's like we can't be everywhere all the time, you know, so, and I can tell you, especially on larger commercial properties, and the gas station is one of them, I mean, we've been there a lot, and, like I said, I rode by there last week, and it was pretty well cleaned up, and if you go by there today, you'll see it's not. So we got to go back out there and do what we got to do. So, you know, we do try to get to where we have to get to, but unfortunately, we can't do it everywhere. It's just a tough job.
Yeah, it's understood and is a difficult job. I know some of these from speaking to Mr. Eben over a long period of time, he's continued to raise these. So maybe if you have a good enough list, maybe we take a look at this and see what we can do, and perhaps give a brief report like you did at Pleasant Valley Way and Prospect at the next council meeting. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Puglisi, thank you for coming under physical duress. And as I said, I was on crutches for a while, and so I sympathize with both you and Councilman Cirillo, so thank you for coming.
Thank you, Councilman.
And what are you going to dress up for Halloween?
Good question. Surprise him, Mr. Puglisi. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Cirillo.
Yeah, the issues with the zoning violations have already been addressed. I do want to, once again, thank Jerry Eben for his passion for the municipality, and we hope that rubs off on a lot of us to continue to try to maintain those property values and the quality of life that we, that made us invest in this community, in this town. Mark Meyerowitz talked about the issue of property values around the battery factory and how we should keep that in mind. Not only those residents, but also, us as, the general population of taxpayers. Because, we're making a big commitment, and really our driver here is the fact that we continue to think about some of those folks, and Ms. Morelli talked about some of the forums and some of the things that you're hearing out there. A lot of our residents are, sometimes because of lack of information, of understanding, they're getting restless in regards to this redevelopment project and this redevelopment process. So I think today we kind of hopefully are able to provide a snapshot on where things are, while we don't have 100 men on site in regards to construction after the 30th. We do have, I guess the best way to describe it, and Jerry Eben can correct me, is like some sort of a soft construction, mobilization process. The LSRP, the asbestos, the paint abatement, clearance, small stuff, but It's moving along at a very slow pace. Again, we don't see men with hard hats or women with hard hats out there, but in due time, according to my notes and according to what was shared, that construction loan should take, from 60 to 90 days to be finalized. That puts us into January, and after that, we're looking at the closing process. Councilwoman Castellino talked about that, 60 days minimum, possibly, to get all that due diligence completed, which puts us into the spring for some heavy-duty construction. So I want the general public to understand that, again, you're not going to see construction crews out there or bulldozers, but there will be movement, and in the background, a lot of these financial necessities will be addressed, and these contracts will be executed. And I'm confident that, at least on my end, I don't speak for the entire council, that we are looking for those taxpayers that have put their faith in this policy decision, and us as homeowners. So that's where we are with the redevelopment process, and Mr. Meyerowitz talked about parking as well. And I share this with Jerry, too, I believe, in the past. I think, just an idea, we should do a better job with marketing some of the existing lots. We have the Quigley lot, we have the Abe Lando lot, and I know that the municipality is possibly looking at the acquisition of other properties for potential parking on Main Street. But the marketing or signage, perhaps, in the form of signage, could help in identifying that, and it'll help us with our mission and our objective of trying to revitalize the downtown area. So thank you for continuing the conversation. Let's keep talking about that. The more we talk about it, the more attention that we lend to these issues, the better chance that that we can put aside some of our funding to shed light or to bring some attention. One last issue I have, Mr. Eben talked about, there's a house in disrepair.
Oxford Terrace.
On Oxford Terrace. Do we know if that's a foreclosure or is it a private-owned property?
It's private-owned property.
Property-owned property.
Private-owned property, okay.
We've been out there a couple times already.
Okay.
And again, one other thing I want to make clear is, and with all due respect to Mr. Eben, who I know very well, it may look like we're not doing things, but we go out to properties, we issue summonses, people go to court, they pay the fines, and nothing gets done. And then we have to go back out again and do the same thing. There comes a point in time, we can't throw you out of your house if you're not going to fix it. If you're going to go into court and you're going to continue to pay the fines, that's really basically the best we can do, is to issue you a summons and get you into court before the judge, and hopefully we can get the judge to order you to do certain things to get done. We're involved in a case right now where that's happening.
Sure.
Where hopefully the judge is, well, not hopefully, the judge is putting certain restrictions on a person in town. But it's not an easy process. If
Right.
like I said, if economically you don't have the funding, if you're a senior citizen and you can't afford to do what you got to do, it's a much more difficult situation than if you're a 25-year-old married guy who's saying, hey, I'm not fixing my house. That's a whole different ballgame.
And I want to add, Mr. Sayers, when we go knock on doors, our neighbors' doors, I've seen specific instances, many instances, where the administration has been proactive in working with. From listening, to some of the residents out there, both neighbors and folks that that violate our zoning ordinances, the township is proactive. We're not. There's a lot of violations out there. I hope we're writing this off as a manpower issue, if it's a personnel issue, I hope that it is addressed. But if it's a manpower issue, it's understandable, knowing that we are. And I'll tell you from experience, from stories that have been shared, I've spoken to homeowners, the town is finding people out there.
I can tell you that most of the work that's done by our zoning department and property maintenance department is done based on complaints. It's not like they even have time to drive around the town and say, oh, gee, this building has a cracked window. That building has this. most of it is done based on complaints by other people that say, hey, go up and take a look at this property and see what's going on. And, you know, we try to do that the best we can.
There's one last issue that I want to bring light, and it's regarding this matter. Do we have an ordinance on second and final reading today? And this is pertaining to foreclosed properties, where we will require the banking institution that's taken over the foreclosure to register a person responsible for the maintenance of these properties, so that the township, can be proactive in addressing any violations that may occur after the foreclosure. So that's good government, and I'm glad that the municipality has followed the statute that allows us to undertake this initiative. So
that ordinance is part and parcel of a lot of complaints that we've gotten with foreclosed properties. So we want to make sure that we at least have, everything in our power to go out and do what we have to do, especially with a foreclosed property.
So
now you're dealing
going
with a
forward,
bank.
we'll have a registry.
Right. You're dealing with a bank. You're not dealing with the senior citizen or the person who can't afford to fix their house. The bank can do the job, so that's why we want that ordinance back.
And again, from meeting neighbors, that issue comes up many times. Since we come across folks who, come across bad financial situations, and unfortunately, that's the result. But now we're going to have a registry, and I'm glad that we're taking that initiative. So, thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question just to piggyback on Councilman's remark to Mr. Sayers? Just with the banks, you will find them though, correct? So I was going to ask that question when the ordinance came up.
Yeah,
that you're speaking about it now.
We try to work with the banks, and a lot of banks do work with us. Other banks do not.
Okay.
So that ordinance is going to give us a little bit more power to deal with the banks who aren't working with us.
Okay, that was my question for at that time. Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome. I'd just like to say to Mr. Meyerowitz, as the liaison to the Downtown West Orange Alliance, our executive director and our board are putting together an inventory of the parking facilities along the Main Street corridor. We are also working diligently to let the public know through signage and marketing and everything else where available parking is throughout the Township of West Orange. We're looking at potential, sites that maybe the township can purchase that would facilitate more commuters going down to the downtown area and having the ability to safely park. So the Downtown Alliance is diligently working on that. To go back to the development, when a developer comes and they say how they're really starting their construction using their own equity, and that the $6.2 million infrastructure that we're talking about won't come into effect until after their equity and their loans are exhausted. It shows the commitment. Yes, I'm very, I would like to see that project up and running. I would like to see a lot more construction moving along. I would like to see a little more proactiveness, because we were elected by the taxpayers, and we want to support them, particularly people in the Main Street corridor, because once this project is developed and goes, it's going to benefit them as property owners. It'll increase the value of their neighborhoods, of their properties. It'll be more of an attraction to our business owners down in the Main Street corridor. When you have people come in, and people live in the area, and people shop in the area, it makes a more vibrant community, just like Montclair was. Montclair took the initiative and everything else, same things that we're doing. So, like I said, I would like to see this project a lot further along. I'd like to see it move, but there are legal ramifications. They have to do the due diligence. You have to transfer the ownership properly. You don't want to go through the whole process and have somebody come back saying, we didn't do the proper procedures, we didn't cross our T's, we didn't dot our I's. Those are the things we need to do. To Mr. Eben's comments about garbage along the Main Street corridor, we appreciate the fact that you're being the sheriff out there and going out there and letting us know that there are issues. And the fact is, we need to address that, and I'm sure the administration is doing more and will do more as it goes along. It reflects when people drive through town, they need to see, a nice, clean area. I mean, first impressions are very important.
I agree.
Parking, okay. Meryl, I hope you got your answers. If not, there were good questions and good things to look at, especially with loan subordination. So, thank you. And Ms. Anderson, thank you for your input. And Mr. Cablisi, thank you. And I just like residents to know. I hear people always say, how much money the county's spending and everything else, but a lot of residents don't realize that money comes from open space and Green Acres funding. That if we didn't take it, the County of Essex didn't take it, somebody else would. So it's money that's available that we need to make use of, and the township eventually, and we are, using, whatever the county gives us, we need to capitalize on that, and we will. So that's all I have to say. I thank everybody for coming. We like your input, we need your input, and most of all, just one last thing is, as my job as council president, I always look out for the best for our residents and for my council colleagues. I like to look out for what's said to them and what they say, and I can't always control what's said here. These things happen, I wish I could, but sometimes it offends me, sometimes with the language and the comments, but I'll try to do a better job on it, but I think I have, and so that's all I have to say. Thank you to my colleagues. Madam Clerk, would you like to continue with the consent agenda, please?
Yes. Okay. Approval of meeting minutes of previous meeting, public meeting, October 13th, 2015.
Consent.
Report of township officers, none. Reading of petitions, communications, and bids, none. Bills, are there any questions on the bills?
Consent.
Resolutions, are any resolutions being pulled this evening?
Councilwoman Castellino, are you pulling any resolutions or have any questions on any resolutions?
I believe my question was answered already. I'm fine.
No question? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have a comment. I don't have a question in regards to the statement made by the public earlier on the Bennett card.
She can
Sure,
take,
yeah.
yes, you can. Please feel free to make
Okay.
that comment.
Okay, sorry, I'm still getting used to the process.
No.
Just reading through the information from Benacord, another reason why the increase is because of the history of the unfortunate circumstances of some of our employees, of some of the expensive medications that they were on this past year, so that caused the increase as well.
Okay, it's a good point. And it's a good point. It's a loss ratio. How people understand that the loss ratio and the incidences, that has an impact.
They look at your history every year, and it does definitely have something to do with the impact.
And it's a very good point, Councilwoman. It's like, people don't realize that, if you have a high loss ratio, your premium just goes skyrocket. But if you're able to control your losses like any insurance policy, and it can control how your premiums are affected. So thank you, Councilman, for bringing that up.
You're
Councilman Kukoviac, are any questions or resolutions to be pulled?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Cirillo.
Council President, I just want to make a quick comment, 2057-15. This is another example of the township being proactive in addressing maintenance violations. We have a property which, I won't mention, that is being fined because it cost the township money to remove debris and trash that had accumulated over time. So I want to thank the administration for their proactiveness and keep up the good work. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman McCartney.
I have nothing,
None.
thank you.
And I have no questions or going to pull any resolutions. So, Madam Clerk, would you please continue, please?
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
None.
The consent agenda is implemented.
To my colleagues, I'd like to ask a little change from our procedure right now is to come out of the public council meeting right now and go into the ABC board to take care of these short matters and then go back into resolutions, ordinances on second and final reading.
Motion moved.
Is there a second? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent, motion is
We will be back in shortly after our ABC board meeting. Thank you very much. Welcome back. We are now back from our ABC meeting, so we'd like to continue with our agenda. Madam Clerk?
Ordinances on second and final reading, 2464-15, an ordinance amending Chapter 5, Sections 8.4, 9.9, 10, and 11.10, and Chapter 32, Section 3 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of West Orange, revisions of various zoning ordinances. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
To introduce.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President
Yes.
Sereno?
Is there anyone here from the general public wishing to be heard on ordinance 2464-15? Seeing none, I close public comment. Do any of my colleagues have any comments on ordinance 2464-15?
Council President, I could just mention that these are revisions that were recommended to the planning board. The zoning officials, there's a zoning, not advisory committee, but they do meet to go over all of our ordinances and make recommendations. We want what's in Chapter 25 to be consistent with what's in Chapter 32, and what we're voting on right now are making those revisions. One is to, in Chapter 25, something to revise walls and fences. I'll just give you the titles, about home occupations, home professional offices, just again, making sure that the two are consistent, the two chapters. Outdoor cafes in Business Zone 1, Business Zone 2, and PC districts.
PC district?
PC districts.
Politically correct.
Politically correct
Politically
districts? I didn't know we had that.
No PERD districts.
Okay.
I don't know PC districts.
Are we on it?
I have to look at that one.
Okay,
And that was it.
okay. Thank you, Councilwoman. Any one of my colleagues have any questions about this
Let's
ordinance?
find out what PC is.
Just when, so this is amending an ordinance?
Yes, this is on the second and final reading. This is where
Okay,
now will
but the
become
so changes were made, obviously, from the original ordinance.
correct. It's an, yeah,
Do you ever get a red line copy so we know what the exact changes
Yes.
are?
yes.
Okay.
Sometimes, not
Sometime.
always.
Most of the time now.
Just asking. Can we have that?
This is old. This came up, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, and then there was a timing, it wasn't back on our agenda, and now it's back again, so.
Okay. I never
yeah,
received a
I
red
wonder if
line
this-
on this one.
Do you
so-
want a
Sometimes it's an
copy?
addition, sometimes it's not a replacement.
Right.
Correct.
It's an amendment. It's adding, not taking away or
Okay.
changing wording.
Did you want me to
If
get
it's,
that?
yeah,
for
I
you?
always like a red line, I like to know
Sure.
what it was before
Very
and what the
helpful.
new changes are, whether you add or.
Just so you know, this is the red line district over here, okay? Not the red light, but we want red
No,
lines for everything,
That's fine.
everything, please.
I was actually going to make that comment, but I'm glad you made it instead.
No, I'm
Red
glad, I'm
line.
glad you did. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. So,
The red line district.
Sorry.
okay.
Sorry, it's why I worked for 10 years.
Well,
It's very helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Very
Sitting next to the right guy. That's all I can tell you.
Yes.
Put in my 2 cents.
Most of the time,
You
our
do,
municipal
it is
clerk
We
provided.
get, it is
Okay.
provided most of the time.
Okay, it would be, yeah. It makes me crazy when I have to.
I was
figure
on
it out.
vacation
Right.
last week, so that's why.
I've always- right.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a, are you?
No, everybody else is done. No other
okay.
questions?
Is there a
or
motion to adopt 2464-15?
So moved.
Second,
Councilwoman Castellino?
yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Carino?
Yes. Madam Clerk?
2465-15, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7, Traffic, subsection 7-10.1, stopping or standing prohibited during certain hours on certain streets of the revised general ordinances of the Township of West Orange. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So moved.
Second?
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
yes.
Council President Garino.
Yes. Is there anyone here in the general, from the general public who would wish to be heard on ordinance 2465-15? Seeing none, I close public comment. I open it to my council colleagues. Are there any comments on this ordinance? Seeing none, I close council comments. Madam Clerk?
Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 2465-15?
Motion moved.
Second,
Councilwoman Castellino?
yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Garino.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2466-15, an ordinance amending Chapter 5, Sections 32.1, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of West Orange, police requested towing and storage services. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So moved.
Second?
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Carino?
Yes. Is there anyone here from the general public wishing to be heard on ordinance 2466-15? Last chance. Seeing none, I close public comment. I open it to my council colleagues. Yes, Councilman Kukoviac?
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Oh, Councilwoman McCartney? Thank you,
I just
Councilman Kukoviac.
wondered what the genesis of this was. I know it was before us, and then it was pulled and rescinded, and now it's back, but
No,
why?
it wasn't pulled. What happened was the chief wanted to review the ordinance because there were certain things he wanted to deal with within the ordinance. So we met and he reviewed some of the information that we went over with, I guess, one of the towers. And then we had talked about changing different things in the ordinance with regard to the township. Like when the township's cars get towed, we were getting charged prior to this. So now part of the ordinance is if a township vehicle gets towed, we don't get charged by our town tower. There were some other issues regarding things when cars were being towed for a crime, so that, you know, if you were the victim of the crime, your car got towed, it would be stored, you'd have to pay for it. So there were some changes made in there. And then some of the fees have been changed because our fees haven't been changed in a while.
Right.
And what we did was, I actually just went online, to be quite honest with you, and looked at different ordinances in different towns. And, you know, we came up with some numbers that we felt were pretty much, you know, equal with the rest of the towns around us. And that's really what's in the ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Kukoviac?
If I could, I'm going to vote against this. I agree with Mr. Sayers that there are some good things from the perspective of the town, but I spoke with the police chief this afternoon, and my concerns are, I guess, twofold. Number one, it's increasing the requirements for the equipment and the storage facility that you have to use. So it's going to add to the cost of anybody who wants to come in and get a license and compete. And it's also raising some of the fees. I don't doubt from what Mr. Sayers said that these are similar to surrounding areas. It's just that they're some of them are going up 50%, and others are going up. And it seems to me that we're raising the barrier to come in and compete, and it didn't seem that you really needed that. There didn't seem to be a problem that the chief was trying to address by increasing the amount of storage you have to have, and also the amount of the equipment. And then combined with a lot of these fees going up, I didn't feel like it was on balance a good thing for the residents here. So I'm going to vote against it, and I would, you know, encourage others on the council to consider that. But I think this is one of the areas that could benefit from competition if we've got the two current towing companies here in town already meet these higher requirements, and so there wouldn't be any burden on them, but it would be a potential burden for anybody who wanted to come in and compete. So I'm just planning to vote against this.
Yeah.
Can
Thank
I
you for your
address
comment.
that one issue?
Yes, Mr. Sayers.
And that's a good point that you make, but the reason that we did that was, number one, if you're a resident and your car gets towed, we don't want you to have to go to someone in Parsippany who's got your car stored up in Parsippany. So what we did was we said, look, expand what you're doing here and keep your facilities in West Orange, so that if a resident's car gets towed in West Orange, it would stay in West Orange. I can't remember the numbers, I'd have to look at my notes, but let's say for argument's sake, the requirement was you had to have space for 35 vehicles in town. Once you hit the 36th vehicle, that could be stored someplace else. So the reason we did that was to try and make it so that whoever was doing the towing had more space in West Orange, so that if your car got towed because of a parking violation, it stayed in West Orange, it didn't go someplace else. Now, there's no guarantee that's going to happen, because there could be a time when they may have 55 vehicles, and then they have the opportunity to put it someplace else. But the reason we made those changes was really more so for the residents, so that, you know, everything is right in town, so you don't have to go out of town to get your car, if, God forbid, something happened to it.
How often do cars get towed? Frequently?
Very often.
Yeah.
Very often. I mean, those lots are pretty much full.
And also when there's an accident, too.
Well, it's not, like I said, accidents, crimes, you know, if your car gets, you know, windows broken, they don't know, they tow the car, it gets towed into our lot, or if there's a carjacking, God forbid, or a stolen vehicle, they get towed. So we were trying to just expand, you know, the amount of lot, you know, the amount of space you had in your lot in town. So we were trying to keep everything in town so that it would work better for the residents.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues? No?
No,
Madam
but
Clerk?
thank you
Oh,
for that
sorry.
comment. No, just thank you for that comment.
Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 2466-15?
Motion moved.
Second?
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
No.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Garino.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2467-15, an ordinance authorizing special emergency appropriation pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-53 for severance liabilities resulting from accrued leave in connection with the layoff or retirements of employees. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final
So
reading?
moved.
Second?
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Garino.
Yes. Is there anyone here from the general public wishing to be heard on ordinance 2467-15? Seeing none, I close public comment, open it to my council colleagues. Any questions? Yes, Councilman.
Just to clarify, this is not for layoffs, this is for people who are potentially retiring this year, correct? Okay. Didn't want to get anybody alarmed.
Nervous.
Yes, nervous. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman. Yes, Councilwoman.
So, John, does this have anything to do with our best practices? No.
I mean, this is, in
I'm not
this,
saying
Yeah.
because of our best
Procedure.
practice, but it,
this is not, tied to, there is a best practice questions about continuing to pay for sick and health benefits,
Right.
or sick benefits at retirement. We have, obligations, contractual obligations in order to do so. But it is a topic that's in best practice.
right.
Yeah, one of the issues is obviously to try and reduce your liabilities with regard to people who are retiring. So we've done that, we've eliminated that for certain unions so far, and we're working diligently on trying to do that for the other unions, but it really has to deal with severance liability and how much money you're gonna get paid out once you leave, and how much money you can accumulate and accrue, during your time working for the township.
Thank you. Any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Is there a motion to adopt 2467-15?
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Garino.
Yes.
Ordinance 2468-15, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 14, Sections 20.3 and 20.5 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of West Orange entitled Duties and Responsibilities of Foreclosing Creditor. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Garino.
Yes. Is there anyone here from the general public wishing to be heard on ordinance 2468-15? Last chance? Seeing none, I close public comment. I open it to my council colleagues. Any comments?
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
It comes from state legislation, so it's pretty much been
Yeah.
vetted from above, and I think it's a really good idea. We've got a lot of foreclosed and empty houses in town, and if we weren't keeping a registry or a database of all of them, this
This
will
would
make
be-
us, so I think it will help, because we need to keep on top of that.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else wishing to be heard on this? Yes.
No, I agree. I think especially when you're dealing with the larger banks and even the smaller banks, to have a contact name is key, because you get transferred around to many multiple departments, so to have that point of contact is instrumental, and hopefully.
This is long and in need for the bank. Good. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Is there a motion to adopt 2468-15?
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Garino.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you to my colleagues for a good council meeting. Yes, Councilwoman?
Before we adjourn, I just want to say that we do want to wish everyone a safe and happy Halloween, and there was a lot of talk of all the activities this weekend. But I want to say congratulations to two young fellows that are going for their Eagle Scout on Halloween, 2 o'clock, Peyton Smith and Anthony Ganella. So they'll be done and in time to trick or treat in the evening. But they're focused and had other things on their mind.
Thank you for the call out. Just like to say too, before we adjourn, thank you, my colleagues, for a very informative council meeting. A lot of information, a lot of things we've covered tonight. We have to cover more. Like before we adjourn too, good luck to all our Mets fans. It's a repeat, of 15 years ago, let's say. And just to invite you to our November 10th council meeting. Please go out to vote. Please exercise your constitutional right to voice your opinion and to vote for the people you believe best benefit the interests of the entire community and entire state of New Jersey. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned.
Good night, West Orange. Have a safe Halloween.